Hello, and welcome to Big Witch Energy, the podcast that journeys into the wonderful and witchy world of Motherland, Fort Salem. We're going to recap and discuss all of the delicious content in every episode. I'm Bree.
And I'm Theora.
Come along with us while we dive deep into the hows, whys, whos, and what of this amazing show. Welcome back to all the fun after the last depressing episode.
Yeah.
I know I needed a hug and a lot of chocolate after that.
Yeah, I'm glad I have dogs that I could just hold for therapy after that episode.
I have cats and a big dog, so that was better. And I went and watched Jenna Marbles, and that always makes me happy. So
There you go.
perfect. But now we're on episode 7 of season 1, Mother Mycelium. This is a
Ooh.
very intriguing title.
Yeah.
This is going to set up a lot of stuff. So it's an important episode in the turning of the whole season. And it was written by Nicole Avinia and Nikki McCauley. And it's directed by Shannon Coley. I love Shannon Coley.
Yeah, got the triple threat, these three ladies.
Triple threat, yeah.
Bringing us Mother Mycelium.
Mother Mycelium. Mm-hmm. So we're going to find out what that means at some point. But for now, we're going back to the cell where Scylla's been tortured. She does not look great.
No.
She looks very defiant, but not great.
So disheveled, this poor girl.
I know. I love that they had to dirty her up and to put her in there.
I know, like, how did she get the dirt on her face is my question. They have her in a chair.
Is someone, like, rubbing their hands in dirt and then punching her? I don't know what's going on. Witches don't seem like the kind that are going to rough you up physically so much as just...
Right, psychologically.
Screw with you with work. I don't understand. She's been in this chair for how long? Is there just dirt in the air that's getting... I don't know. Whatever. I guess it's
who do we need to hurt?
Yeah, it's just an aesthetic. Let's go with that.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
But who's in the cell with her when we left? Alder.
Uh-huh. And then when we open, who's in the cell?
Alder and the biddies.
And the biddies now are just in there.
Why are the biddies in there now?
That was my question. I'm like, in the very final shot, they dramatically close the door behind Alder, so it's just Scylla and Alder, and then we open, and the biddies are there. Did the biddies knock on the door and they're like, hey, you forgot us? You forgot us?
Let us in!
Let us in! Yeah, I thought that was weird. I'm like, why are they in there?
It's not like they wouldn't know what was going on, considering how connected they are to Alder.
Right, it's just weird. Like, was there a missing scene of just Alder and Scylla just staring at each other, and then the biddies come in?
We need the biddy audience for this.
Yes, we do.
Apparently. They just wanted a front row seat, I guess.
They did. They're like, how dare you leave us out of this?
I'm surprised they don't all have, like, camcorders or something.
Oh my god, the biddy GoPro.
Biddy GoPro!
Could you imagine?
One strap to each of their heads.
Yep, and then when they're in battle, it's just like bobbing behind all.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I want this badly.
We would get a lot of butt shots of Alder, I'll tell you that much.
Hey, give the people what they want, right?
Exactly.
That would be so funny.
So, Alder and the biddies are in the cell with Scylla, but we start with a shot of of Scylla's back and the chair. Her hands are in her lap. Alder and the biddies are in front of her and around her, and you see Anacostia in the back holding something, which you can't really see what it is at that point. And Alder's asking her about the spree targeting the Bellwether line, but Scylla's ignoring it all. She's not going to spill, and instead, she goes straight in for Alder's jugular.
Yeah.
Which is a brave thing to do considering her circumstances.
Big witch energy ramshorn.
Exactly. So she says, Sarah Alder, the one who fought back, the one who changed the world, the great heroine. And then she puts her hand on the silencing collar and says, didn't they make you wear something like this? And I'm like, flashback to the pageant where young Sarah Alder has that weird contraption on her head to keep her from talking. And I'm like, well, hers was a little suckier if that's the case, since the silencing collar doesn't go in your mouth. They're just having their little stare down their big witch energy off. This is like a big witch energy contest going on
Oh,
here.
it sure is.
It sure as heck is. But she's also got Anacostia to contest with, because she comes in bringing a plate and puts it in Scylla's lap and tells her to eat. Scylla looks down at the food and then she kind of starts spouting off spree party lines. Like, the only war is between us and them. It's the last war. And I just am like, okay, so the spree wants to fight the civilians and like battle to the death kind of thing. Like, who wins and rules the world? I don't like, is that what they mean by the last war?
Yeah,
Or
because then Alder follows it up with the end, and if you read it, if you watch it with the subtitles, it's like capitalized. Like, I was like, what
right,
does, like, it's the title of like this, like, I don't know, like, what's the end of the world thing? Like,
the apocalypse,
yeah, or
the
like, what's the Christian version? It's
I'm
like
trying to remember. It's
Revelation, or what's it, how it's
Revelations,
called?
yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like that. Like, it's this like prophecy thing where they're like the end, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I was gonna ask you, what does this mean? This dialogue.
It to me, I'm wondering, okay, I don't have a solid answer because I'm in the same position you are. However, I think that it just means that the spree think that the final war will be a war between witches and civilians, and then I'm guessing they're thinking they're going to win and that they'll be in control then. So
Yeah,
I want to know, like, are they planning on subjugating civilians after this great war is over,
I
or
think
the
they're more.
end?
I think they're more like exterminating,
Yeah,
is
so
where the spree's heads at. They're like, because Scylla kind of the rest of the dialogue kind of hints at where they're at, where they're like, as long as humans are around, well, we will never be free. We'll always be othered. Like, so the answer is like, we tried your way, Sarah, of like working with them. They still hate us. We have to get rid of them, otherwise we will never be free. Is kind
and
of
that would make more sense with the end.
right, and again, because it harkens back to the spree just being extreme in general. So if like this is their end goal, like this is a very extreme end goal. So like it kind of makes their tactics make more sense because their end goal is so extreme. Like, you know what I mean?
It just makes them the opposite of the camera. We're not there
The
yet.
who? The what? Nothing. We didn't hear anything.
We didn't
They're
hear
the, we
anything.
didn't hear anything. But the fact that Alder is kind of aware of it, that's what was weird for me, because she's saying like
Mm-hmm.
from Alder's perspective, she's like the end, like as if Sarah Alder's like, yeah, I see where this is headed to, kind of, and I'm trying to prevent the end, which is this us versus them genocide extinction kind of war, I
I
guess.
pretty much figure that they've captured spree agents before and that they're educated on what their party lines are. Because if you meet
Yeah,
the spree, they're not shy about telling everybody what they want.
no, they're bad spies. They can't keep
They're
their
really bad. I mean, even Scylla is sitting here spouting off all of the party lines.
exactly. They're like, because again, well, also Scylla is somebody who just believes what she believes and is not afraid to show it.
Exactly. She's a true believer.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think they've captured some bad spree agents before, and they already knew all this stuff. So, yeah,
Yeah, they're not that bad at intelligence.
no.
And I imagine that other spree agents are a lot easier to break than Scylla
Oh,
Big
yeah.
Witch Energy Ramshorn.
Mm-hmm.
So Scylla picks up something off the plate, which kind of looks like salami to me.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay, thank you. And then she eats it. And then that's when she starts talking all the nice spree things as she chews. And then there's some pain going on. And she puts her hand to her mouth and it's glass shards that she's actually been chewing on, quote unquote.
Ugh,
Let's talk
gross.
about torture. And then but she does the most Scylla thing possible and spits the blood and glass at Alder's feet.
Oh, yeah. Scylla, throughout this whole interaction, while being interrogated by Alder, just is on her bullshit the whole time, and it's just completely sarcastic and sassy. despite this position of her being chained to a chair in front of Alder. I love it.
Exactly. So she's eating the salami going, I'm fighting for freedom. And Alder calls her a murderer. And then you fight for the end, and I cannot allow that. Man, Alder's face, though, when Scylla realizes that she's chewing on glass, damn, she was so thrilled that worked.
I know. Hate it.
That was creepy. Alder is so creepy in this episode for me. Not creepy in a creeper way. She's still like stupidly attractive and like powerful and everything.
Of course, it's Alder.
It is. So, in any case, after she realizes that it's glass she's chewing on, she tosses the plate on the floor and it breaks. But then when she looks back down, it was all a glamour because there's nothing on the plate. It's just a broken plate.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes her laugh.
Yeah.
Which I don't think Alder expected at all.
Scylla's on her bullshit. I love it.
No, she's like, oh, okay. I see what we're doing here. And she says my favorite line in this entire episode, which is, thank you ever so much for lunch. So refreshing.
I love her.
That really pisses Alder off too.
It
and
does.
I am here for it.
Mhm.
Oh, that is extreme big witch energy right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way that she says it too. Thank you ever so much for
I know, like she's at a tea party. I love it.
Exactly. We're in Alice in Wonderland and she's just chilling at the tea party with the Mad Hatter. But so Scylla's clearly showing her big witch energy, and Alder comes at her and goes in for the torture to weaken her up. And then Anacostia gets behind Scylla, and while Alder is going at her, we don't exactly know what she's doing, but Scylla's screaming, so it can't be good. Then Anacostia, while that's going on, tries to get into Scylla's head and says will only be as hard as you make it, which Scylla's gonna make it hard. You know she is, so that's not gonna happen. We see a little flash of Scylla's past, like she's walking towards an elevator, and then she says, get out of my head, and she just throws Anacostia right out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I mean, considering Anacostia's got to be super powerful as well, that was a big move right there. But kind of tell that everyone's like, oh, damn. And then Scylla says, there's nothing you can do. We won't stop until there's total liberation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we get a shot of Anacostia and Alder looking shooketh. I don't think they expected Scylla to be so hard to break.
No, she's formidable. This is how the podcast got its name, because of this girl.
It is.
It just is big witch energy.
They had no idea.
They had no idea.
And that's okay. We'll give them points because they've met other spree agents that sucked in that regard.
I mean, Scylla's not a great spy, but she's
not a great spy, but she has the most conviction.
Exactly. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, she's
a strong person.
She's formidable, for sure.
And I love Elliot's, when he's talking about this scene and after the storm, how he was so excited for this one to see how these two super intelligent and amazing women were going to go head to head, and they delivered. So I love that this scene exists.
Yeah, it's amazing. What I also thought was interesting, like speaking of after the storm, is when Amalia was talking about it, and she's basically saying that like when Alder first comes into the room with her, Scylla's kind of like mesmerized by her, which I thought was interesting as a descriptor, since she also essentially says that Alder's like the poster child of like the evil, and like the reason they're all in this system is because of Alder. So she's viewed like as like the ultimate evil by like the spree. So the fact that she was mesmerized is interesting. And she also said that how like, you know, Scylla personally never wanted to meet Alder ever, but like obviously she knew who she was. So I just thought that was very interesting to just be like, oh, okay, just to be in the room with Alder is just like a mesmerizing thing, despite viewing her as this ultimate evil.
Right, because no matter what her viewpoint of Alder is, she's still almost she's still a mythological figure within their community.
Exactly.
So
it's just cool. Like,
yeah, it's really cool. It would be like you getting to face off with the evil queen. or something. It's just like, oh my God, she's like right in front
there
of
she
me,
is.
staring
Yeah,
at me
totally.
with that jawline.
With yeah, Scylla's like, oh, okay. I get why people like you.
Oh, okay, hello.
But wait a minute, you're evil, damn it.
Yeah, and I think that scene was where anyone who wanted to ship those two together,
Yeah, that would be the scene to
that
ship
would be
them.
the only crumbs you could get.
Yeah, for whoever's on that ship.
Yeah,
Sure.
but very, very cool scene.
So from that big witch energy measuring contest scene between Alder and Scylla that we love so much, we skip on over to the unit who's walking base. And I want to note that all three of them have their jackets open, which is interesting. So you brought this up a couple episodes ago about like the emotional armor being signified via clothing. This happens a lot in different kinds of like media, but here I think like with the unit, they're on that path of just like bonding together on like a personal level versus like rah, we need to like be good army mates. And so I think that's kind of being signified by the clothing. They're much more like open versus
Casual.
yeah, but I think
Open as emotionally.
yeah, exactly. Because in the last episode, they were kind of all dealing with their own trauma individually, and now they're kind of like doing it together a little bit. So I think that's what this is trying to signify.
I think it's like a transition episode in a way between them being more split up and then coming together in this episode, but still having their own stuff that they're dealing with individually.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like the baby steps towards like being like real sisters. They're a little bit more open about their traumas in this episode compared to the last one. But while they're walking, you hear all this snickering from all these other cadets, giving them side eye as they're walking and talking shit about them. And why are there so many judgmental, gossipy cadets on this base?
Thank you.
Like,
this place is high school.
Right. They're adults. Like, what are you guys doing? There's constant gossip against the other like cadets on base all the time. It's so weird. This is what happens when you don't have television, because remember, they just have the spree news.
Exactly.
Make some TV shows, guys. Keep them occupied.
I mean, yeah, the only time I've ever experienced the goss to that level was in like middle school and high school. So
right. What? It happens all the time. It's bizarre. But anyway, so they're walking past all these judgmental biatches, and then Abigail's like, just ignore it. You know, we did what we had to do. Like, she's trying to give them a pep talk to be like, whatever, like, we're in this together, like, screw them. So go, Abigail.
This is totally Abigail's episode to be like, rah, we're together, and not in a negative way.
Yeah, no, Abigail's not trying to force the fact that she's a leader. She's actually being an organic leader in this episode.
Exactly.
Not because Mama Bellwether's like, you better be being a leader right now. Abigail's just naturally being a leader, which is great.
She's loosened up.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so they're walking, and then Tally and Abigail are like, okay, yeah, we'll ignore it. And then they pass the necro barracks, and Raelle obviously notices and just stops to stare at Scylla's window. And she tells the unit, because they didn't know, that, you know, this is Scylla's room, and she's just like, everywhere I go, it's just constant reminders of Scylla everywhere. And she's like scratching or like
rubbing her hand
where she gets the witch text the whole time. And Abigail's like, recognizes that Raelle's like falling back into her grief. So she quotes Isadora and says, grief is wild. Remember, you told me that, because necros keep giving you good advice. And she really like softens her voice here and touches Raelle and like leads her away. And she's like, you know, time will help you, Raelle. Like, come on. And finally, Abigail learned how to talk to Raelle. This is it, guys. She figured it out.
Except later on, she goes backwards.
Okay, no, it's like baby steps. But like, this is the first conversation where she actually talked to Raelle and actually comforted her.
It's so true. And just like came to a level where she knew she could actually get through to Raelle rather than insulting her.
Yeah, and this is Abigail actually being comforting like Tally would be, because normally Abigail would be like, walk it off. But here she's actually like, I get that you're sad, like it's just gonna take time, like come on. And like like tactile comfort too, where she touches Raelle and like physically leads her away. So it's a big deal for Abigail.
It is a big deal because Tally can't do that right now because of what's going on with
Yes.
her.
Blurry Tally in the background is just looking guilty AF the whole scene.
Mhm.
Because you're exactly right. This would be Tally's role, but Tally's in guilt land because, again, she's the reason that Raelle's all grief stricken. So
I think they're also kind of at this point blending as far as their traits are concerned, getting a little bit of one another.
yeah, no, they're definitely they're bonding, like actually bonding and rubbing off on each other, like you said. So this is the kind of the start of the road of them like forging like a lasting real bond with each other that's not forced by the military, basically.
I love that this grief is wild has gone from Isadora to Raelle to Abigail.
Yeah,
I would really like to have that quoted again at some point.
same.
But, hey. That okay, and on the subject of gossip, we're about to get into some more because
I know, it's everywhere.
because
Everywhere.
when we go to Adil, he's overhearing these other cadets talk shit about Raelle over breakfast. And they're just they're gossiping about the bellwether unit and
Like really loudly too. Like
really
it's
loud,
so
yeah.
loud.
And there's so many people in here that can hear them, and so is Abigail.
No, and Dill is like on the opposite end of the cafeteria and hears this gossip.
He's trying to figure out the cereal dispensers, and they're over there just loudly
dissing the bellwether
being
unit.
bitches.
I know, it's what a scene. I love it.
The witch bitch army.
The
is
witch
over
bitches.
there.
These are the plastics in like the military.
Yep. So Abigail walks up, and I guess they kind of just realize and shut that heck up, or anyway. So she realizes that Adil is having some trouble with the cereal.
Oh no! Hold on before you go there. The reason they shut up is because Abigail looks at them and then says "boo."
That's right. She does.
Like, her delivery is not even vaguely threatening. She's just like "boo," and then they shut up. Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm here.
So it's okay. Go, Abigail.
Yeah, that's a point for Abigail. Basically, Abigail and Adil are flirting over cereal and talking about ditching his guard, who's quote unquote his guide. Yeah. She's just standing there creepily in the background watching them.
Does not look like a guide. She looks like, and she's like hand on her scourge, like that's my guide.
I'm like, what are you about to do? Like,
right?
Who are you guarding against whom here?
Exactly. That's definitely an implication.
Exactly. So Adil gets his cereal and goes away, and Tally walks up and is like, "Oh, he's cute." And Abigail's like, "Before you start planning my wedding."
Oh my god, Tally was literally like breathing down Abigail's neck.
She was.
It's so creepy. It was anybody else would be creepy, but it's so funny.
She needed something else to think about besides her betrayal.
No, totally. No, I said it last episode. Tally is definitely clinging onto Abigail more than normal because she can't interact with Raelle.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so funny.
Raelle is there as well, but she just wants to go for a walk and get the hell away from all this. Probably go back by Scylla's room again.
She's gonna go cry under a live oak. That's what
she is. She's gonna go cry under a live oak. But Abigail kind of gets all protective and worried, but half of it is that she's worried Raelle won't show up to training.
I don't know. I feel like Abigail is more concerned than the training bit because the first thing she says to Raelle is like, "Are you okay? Like, are you gonna go take some salva and try to fly to the lighthouse again?"
Exactly.
And so, like, she doesn't even get out the training bit before Raelle's like, yeah, I'll be there. It's fine. I'm not going to fly away. I think that's kind of more the dialogue versus like, hey, you better be at training.
No, it absolutely is. It's like she throws it in there, I don't know, to retain her street cred. I think
it's like a reminder. It's like, hey, if you're going to go be restless, like, just remember
we have training.
Yeah. So very different, like,
okay,
Abigail dialogue than
from the beginning.
Different. It's good. I love it.
We're turning over a new leaf.
It's the dawn of a new era, guys. That's the theme going forward.
But then we go to the infirmary where we see Khalida and her black webbing. So we've got Colonel Wick, who is supposedly the best fixer in the country.
Yes.
I don't put my money on that.
No. I think Willa Collar was better, but that's just me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Willa would have kicked Colonel Wick's ass any day of the week.
She sure would have. Oh, Willa Collar.
Willa Collar.
What a girl.
Holla.
Hello.
She's talking about trying to protect Khalida's lungs while they do some work to try to get rid of the witch plague. And I don't know, my note is kind of vague, but I'm pretty sure they mentioned that the witch plague is man-made in this scene.
Yeah. When Colonel Wick's inspecting Khalida, they basically, first of all, I love this part where they say there are necro reports from The Hague the past couple of months, terminal cases in various war zones. It's something new, unnatural, maybe human made. Can we see the necro reports? What the fuck, Elliot?
Yeah, where are the necro reports?
Where are these reports? Like, what was the report? I would love to know how the necros got this information. Show us, please. And yeah, human made. Ding. Because this thing does not behave like a natural pathogen. It drives me crazy. It's bizarre, this thing. So, like, they're kind of like hinting at the fact that this is now, it's showing up in war zones where witches are. It doesn't behave like a normal pathogen. They're thinking it's man made, designed to like target witches, basically.
If technology has advanced not that far, how is this being made?
I can't explain this pathogen. It's so weird.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't. We have the first television ever, but we have this plague. Explain that to me.
That looks so sophisticated as far as someone's engineered it to be. I don't know. We find out more about this later, but as far as how it acts and everything,
it's very strange.
This is just our introduction to it, really. But
yeah.
So they try to do some work on Khalida to get rid of the witch plague, or kind of gauge where they are with this, and it causes Khalida to let out all of these spontaneous vocalizations that start to blow up light bulbs and kind of shake the ground, shake the building. And all the fixers are kind of like, WTF, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I'd like to note that all of the fixers are also in the white coats like the other science people.
Yeah, I love that detail. Because, yeah, you'd expect the fixers to wear white coats like, medical doctors do. But then the necros are also in the coat, and they're like the opposite sides of like the life and death spectrum. So I love that.
Isn't that great?
So
I love it.
I love it. But yeah, very, very interesting scene, and the plague is very strange.
And you see the witch plague as soon as it triggers Khalida to start letting out these vocalizations. It changes, the webbing changes on her.
Yeah, from where it's located, it's like mostly on her neck, kind of creeping along her jaw and her shoulder. So it looks like the pathogen is targeting witch anatomy, so it's going towards the vocal cords.
Vocal cords.
But yeah, when they try to do the work and it agitates this thing, it's almost like it tries to protect itself. Like, so like natural pathogens do things like that, not this quickly, but like some bacteria will let off like little endotoxins or things to protect itself. And that's kind of what this thing is doing, but it's harnessing its host, meaning Khalida, to like protect it by like almost invade, because Wick says, oh, I think it got her vocal cords. And so it's using the witch's work to defend itself, which is wild. That's something like parasites kind of can do. So it's very weird.
It's a weird mishmash of the way other things in nature behave.
Yeah.
Almost.
But it's very like specific and targeted. Like, how on earth does the witch plague know how to do magic with the vocal cords? Like,
yeah, like how do you put that into any kind of genetic code that you're engineering?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's very it has pathogenic behavior. This is my ID brain coming out. It has pathogenic behaviors, but it's wild. Like, that is so weird. And yeah, think about like how you'd have to genetically engineer something to do that in the world with the first television ever. Like,
Yeah.
it seems light years ahead of where technology is.
I was about to say, like, they would have to have technology that is beyond what we have now for genetic engineering.
Yes, I don't get it. I'm like, how in this world, how is my question? And you don't have cell phones, but we're creating this thing. It's very weird.
It is.
It's weird. It gets weirder going forward with how this thing quote unquote evolves. Also, I have to say, okay, so like every pathogen, it has to feed off of something to stay alive. What the hell is its food source?
Thank you.
Like, what is it eating? Like, you know, to metabolize and to actually stay alive. Unless it's like, this might be too deep. If it's like a virus, where viruses really don't feed off of anything, they just hijack. But again, this doesn't make sense. They hijack the host's machinery to like replicate itself, and that's all it does. It doesn't, it's just genetic code in a capsule that goes to its host cell and then it replicates over and over. But that's not what this thing is doing. It's just like, it's colonizing Khalida's neck, and like, I don't get it. Like, what is it? How is it even alive is my question.
That was my other question. Is this thing actually alive? Because we'll see later in the episode, I guess, part of the, I don't know what you call it, like the seed of it or whatever.
We'll get there, but yes. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's baffling.
I think it is because of the scene you're referring to. And in season 2, they use terminology that makes it sound like it's living. But like,
right.
How? What is it? What's its energy source?
They make it seem like a little animal almost.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like a little predator. Well, I mean, which, you know, bacteria and all that stuff, they're kind of predators. But like, it's weird. I don't get it. The witch plague keeps me up at night trying to figure out how this thing functions and its evolution. It's just very strange.
Hey, Elliot,
please explain. Also, I want the necro reports. Maybe it's in the necro reports we're not getting. Whatever.
Yeah, can we get the necro reports, please?
Seriously. But yeah. Anyway, that's unless you have more about the witch plague. I could talk all day about this because it's weird.
But you could also talk all day about the next scene.
Okay, yeah, we're going to be at the next scene for at least 10 minutes. So, because
prepare yourselves.
This is my favorite scene in season 1. It's like a runaway train going off the rails into a dumpster fire, and I love every second of this. It's so good.
Isadora and the dumpster and the runaway train.
Isadora and the runaway train. Isadora. I have so many questions about this scene. But anyway, so we shoot on over to the basic training room with the Lesbian Jesus light, and we hear a voice that just says, "Morning, soldiers. I'll be filling in for Colonel Wick today." And it's Isadora.
There was no other fixer available. They were all busy.
How did we get here is my question. So I love this because how did this happen? So what was Isadora doing off screen moment? So I have to imagine that Anacostia right now is so entrenched in hating Scylla land that she's just not paying attention to the cadets. So she had to get like substitute instructors for all of the lessons they're supposed to be learning because like their basic is coming to an end, spoiler, by the end of the episode. So like, fuck, we got to teach them like healing and all this other stuff. So she very quickly, without realizing it, was trying to like get people to cover these things. And she's like, well,
so she's making a schedule.
Yeah, she's making the substitute teacher schedule. And she's like, okay, great. Colonel Wick's here. And she signs it and then sends it to like the administrative office. And then she goes back in the dungeon to do her thing with, you know, hating Scylla because she makes her so happy. And the admin person is trying to like coordinate this. And they're like, and then she goes to Colonel Wick and Colonel Wick's like, no, I got this Tareem girl. I cannot leave the infirmary. And the admin person's like, well, fuck, I got to find somebody else. So they tried like Flying Lady, but obviously they couldn't find her because she's always disappearing. And so she goes down the list of like candidates and then gets to Isadora because Isadora is always available. So they're like, well, let's try this, I guess. So this admin person goes to Isadora and she's like, hey, I'm going to need you to like teach the cadets. And Isadora's like, cool. Well, you know, we'll kill some stuff and make it talk. And they're like, no, Isadora, you need to teach them healing. And she's like, wait, healing so they won't be dead. And they're like, no, Isadora, you cannot kill anyone in this. You have to teach them healing. And Isadora's like, right, I won't kill anyone, wink, and then skips off to go teach this lesson.
Oh, I love it.
Because seriously, who authorized this lesson? It makes no sense. And I love this scene also because this is everyone except Raelle's first introduction to Isadora. And this is how she chooses to introduce herself to the cadets. So we're back in the basic room, and she like touches Raelle, like, hey, Raelle, bestie, go back in line. And she's like, all right, guys, I can totally fill in and teach you guys healing. Like, no big deal. I got this. I'm going to need a volunteer, though. And so Raelle knows not to raise her hand because she's met this woman, but a bunch of people do. And Isadora picks a rando. And she's like, yeah, girl, come on up here. And the girl like stands next to her, and Isadora like very gingerly like swipes her hair away. And
it's
then
so gentle.
It's so gentle. And then does a 180 and slits the girl's throat.
It's not a metaphor. She literally
becomes a predator in like a fraction of a second and slits her throat with this giant knife.
She's like so gleeful about it too.
It gets so much better. She's so thrilled, and the girl's like gargling and bleeding profusely through her neck. And then Isadora goes into she whips out her acting skills, and she's like, well, guys, we're gonna teach linking today. While this girl is dying next to her. It's the funniest thing ever. And like the cadets are all horrified. And she just gives this very passionate speech about how, like, you know, in battle, you can blow up all the shit you want, but without a fixer, you're fucked. So we're going to talk about linking today, guys, because, like, breathing has its own sound. And she starts, like, poetically going off about this while the girl's dying.
It's like philosophical time.
It's so
She's philosophically pontificating on the sound of breathing.
While the
music of breathing.
The music of breathing. And she's like, heartbeats have their own music while the girl is gurgling next to her, choking on her own blood.
No, that's the book title, Isadora and the Music of Breathing.
Isadora and the Music of Breathing. And, like, I feel like this would have been a better speech if the cadets could focus on Isadora, but they're all staring horrified at the dying girl and not listening to Isadora.
Right? I like, okay, from a shock value perspective, it almost kind of makes sense to, like, let them see that there are huge stakes.
Right.
For this whole lesson, but at the same time, they're not going to absorb anything if there's a girl dying in front of them and you're over here pontificating.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like,
okay, Thoreau, back down.
Yeah, this was like the Hunger Games, this whole thing. She's like, I need a volunteer, and then does this. And everyone's just triggered in this room. And she's like, cool, guys. And then she doesn't sing, doesn't chant. Finally, she's like, all right, this girl's about to die. Like, I can feel it. And she finally, like, links with her. And you hear, like, this very strong heart beating with the music. So good job, sound team. And the wound closes up. And then Isadora, after she heals the girl, like, pats her on the back. And she's like, why don't you go rest before jumping back in? And the girl just, like, scurries away. And it's like, thanks to you, Isadora, this girl will never volunteer for anything ever again in her life.
None of these people will volunteer for anything ever again. Especially if you're involved.
It's so funny, but I love it. It's like Isadora's version of empathy at the end. She's like, you could rest for a minute after I almost killed you without warning. It's so fucking funny.
I feel like, you know, she had a control over what was going on as far as the girl was. Like, I imagine Isadora very well knows when this girl's gonna die, but still.
This was Isadora having her own fun with this lesson. That's what this was.
It was.
And it's hilarious, the whole thing. And then at the end, after she heals the girl, and everyone's like, what the fuck? She's like, as you see, linking is good. It can save people's lives, but advanced linking, you can get glimpses into another soldier's minds and memories. And this freaks out Tally. Before she pairs them up. And I love that Isadora was already going to pair up these people, and the first group is Swithe and Bellwether. Because
yes, it is!
Because even Isadora can sense their chemistry.
And heard the goss.
Oh, Isadora, yeah, from her necro reports. Her little mushrooms around base, they tell her everything.
Yep, exactly.
And Tally, before Isadora can assign her, she's like, Glory, I pick Glory, because she doesn't want Raelle seeing her memories. And Isadora's like, yeah, whatever, I don't give a fuck. And Collar and Tree fine. So we get our first introduction to the rudest cadet ever,
Yes.
Tree, fine. I don't even want to give you your first name because fuck you in this scene.
Exactly.
She starts like insulting Raelle, calling her the Salva freak, and Raelle's just like, I don't give a fuck. She's like, whatever, can we just get this over with? And they join hands, and Raelle jumps into her normal lesbian Jesus healing and starts doing her normal prayers. And Treefine shuts this down real fast and says, that Christo-pagan nonsense is not how this is done. And I just want to kind of comment on this line because Elliot talks about it in After the Storm. And basically, what this is signifying is like the distrust that still exists between witches and like the church. So I guess like even in this, alternate universe, the Christian church was persecuting witches like historically since forever. So
why would they ever have a reason to trust the church? Period.
Yeah, I just thought it was significant because like
Absolutely.
History's been all discombobulated in this universe, so like even this is still happened, unfortunately. So there's still distrust with them. But I guess in the session it's different where Raelle grew up. So interesting like lore stuff going on there and world building. And Raelle's like, she just flips on her big witch energy and she's like, listen, this is how I learned it. I'm a fixer. Like, what do you want from me? And the girl triggers Raelle by saying, how'd that work out for Porter? And Raelle just starts going off with her prayer even more forcefully, and her voice is augmenting, and she knocks out everybody in the room except Isadora.
Isadora's like so proud of her too.
Listen, this is more proof for me that Isadora literally doesn't give a fuck about the rules. Isadora literally doesn't give a fuck about Spree versus Army. She's just in it for all the wonder of magic and like embellishing all of that. She literally doesn't give a fuck. And she's just like, well, cool, I'm awake. So obviously you didn't learn this sleep induction is what she calls this move in the military. And Raelle's like, what? Like, what did I do? What did I do? And Isadora's like, well, you just forced everyone to take a nap. And instead of like scolding Raelle, she's like, listen, girl, you're a slave to your emotions right now. Isadora gets it. She gets it. And she's like, in combat, that's disastrous. So you got to learn to master your feelings so it can set you free. Because right now, you're held hostage by it. And like, yes, Raelle, this has been your problem since Willa Collar died. And I feel like she really needed to hear this. And, Raelle is just always getting amazing advice from necros. Like just
necros give the best advice.
They do. They really do.
There's a t-shirt in there somewhere.
They do. Go cry to a necro. They will help you out. And then she says a Scylla trigger line where she says, lean on us. Our cannon will not fail you. And Raelle starts getting emotional more so and says that's what Scylla said, to let the army make me stronger. And she's like on the verge of tears here. And then Isadora says she was right and smart. And so I personally really think, by how genuine this line was delivered, that Isadora really did like Scylla. And I think Scylla really was a favorite of hers. And so that's kind of coming out here. She's like, yeah, she was right. She was smart. She was one of my faves.
I really feel like Scylla and Isadora have a lot more in common than
totally.
Scylla and any other character on the base. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. I really do think that when she found out Scylla was in the spree, Isadora was just genuinely disappointed because like she lost Scylla. I don't think she really cares about the spree army stuff. No. I think that she had high hopes for Scylla, to be quite honest.
I feel like she was sad because they would never sit around and talk about mushrooms and dead things again.
Because like you get it in this scene with Isadora, like she's not scolding Raelle for being powerful and for like having these gifts. She's more like, hey, you just got to learn how to control this. Like, and I feel like she was the same way with Scylla. She saw that Scylla was powerful and was like, hey, you're powerful. Let me teach you how to control this stuff.
She probably taught her a few things that she didn't teach the other students.
I think so too.
I love our headcanons on this Isadora.
I spent way too much time thinking about Isadora, but like, yeah, like when it comes to Scylla, I think they were like little a mentor-mentee thing was happening with those two.
Absolutely.
That was different from the other necros. All right, so while they're resolving the Scylla triggering, the cadets start waking up, and then my favorite part, Isadora's like, all right, Raelle, gonna have to reprimand you. And then she winks.
Yeah, I love Isadora winking.
Yeah, more proof Isadora does not give a fuck about the rules. She just loves experimenting with magic. and it was great. And then she puts on this really, and then I love how she like wink, like reprimands her. She puts on this really fake looking angry face, but her voice is so giddy while she's scolding Raelle.
Exactly.
Like she really doesn't care. It's just classic Isadora. And she's like, works outside of cannons, forbidden, Raelle. How dare you? That was dangerous.
Tisk, tisk.
Yeah, tisk, tisk. And then she's like, all right, guys, get back to your linking exercise. And it's just great. But of course, Treefine, this hoe, is like still going after Raelle.
Still being salty.
Yeah, she's like, how dare you, session girl. And then Abigail gets in her face and is like, well, need I remind you, girl, she just put you on your ass, so you might want to like not talk to her like that again. And then Treefine like walks away. But like it's another good bonding moment with Abigail and Raelle because she's like, that girl's scum, like, and you just knocked her out. So good job, Raelle, and like pats her shoulder again. It's like
exactly.
Yeah, it's Abigail's learning how to talk to Raelle, and Raelle is kind of like, oh, okay. Like
okay.
And she takes that compliment, and it's a good scene, and
it is a good scene.
Yeah.
I love it. Also point out that this is the first and only time in my memory that we see Isadora in like a sweatshirt and some PDU pants. I was like, damn girl, you make that look good.
I know. Isadora without the lab coat on. More of that, please, Elliot. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Let her flex that bod. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for pointing out that visual.
Oh yeah. God, I cannot get that out of my head either.
I know, it's so good. Casual Isadora. We never get
Casual Isadora.
But I love at the end, while, again, Isadora doesn't give any fucks. All the girls are getting up, and she's like, oh, yeah, by the way, you'll get real sick if you do what you guys are doing right now, which is get up too soon.
Oh, yeah, you guys probably should have stayed down for a minute.
I probably should have warned you, but oh well.
Oh well. Enjoy the vomit.
This scene is just classic Isadora. If you don't love her after this scene, do you have a heart? Come on. So good.
Oh, she's amazing.
She is fucking amazing. Just last thing I want to say about the scene on the Raelle train from Elliot is that some important things about Raelle from this is you just see the potential Raelle has in terms of the depths of her powers. And I think that's what Isadora is picking up on. But it's just important, again, Raelle is actually powerful, and it's like we've heard other people talk about it, but this is like the first time you see how powerful Raelle really is. But she just doesn't know how to control any of this stuff yet.
I want to know if it's normal for someone to be able to sleep in an entire room of people, or if that's something that Raelle can do because she is so powerful. Like, what level of power do you need to have to sleep in an entire room of people, and not even on purpose?
Yeah, no, totally. Because Isadora says, like, you didn't learn this in the military. So I'm curious, when they learn it in the military, like, can you do a full room of people, like you're saying, or can you select certain people? So it's like targeted sleeping, which would be useful in battle, honestly. But
well, the only times we ever see anybody else sleep people, they touch them.
Yeah, they touch them. Exactly. Raelle just like verbally knocked them all out, which is interesting. And yeah, I was also like, well, why is Isadora awake? It was my question too. Like, was she out of the radius? Because she creeps from the back of the room.
Yeah, so I think she was out of range.
Yeah, it's just the whole thing was very, very interesting. That scene.
Yeah, I have questions.
I have questions. Elliot, we want the necro reports and Raelle's powers.
Yeah. We need, and necro, we need to know, I would guess it probably won't be in the necro reports, but more about everything that necros can do.
Yeah, just give me a report on the necros, including their reports. Please and thank you.
So many things. But for better or for worse, we have to go on to the male witches coming back to base.
That's a perfect transition.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, it's like,
we're back here.
Gummit.
We just got rid of you.
You just got rid of these people. So we get an overhead shot of the bus, and it stops and lets all the boys off. And Witchfather gives them their orders to, if you're awake, you're building and modifying weapons because we have expedited City Drop. So we're going to find out that City Drop is the big crucible test for all of the cadets to see if they're going to get through basic or not.
Yeah, it's kind of fucked up that the dudes figure this out before the ladies do.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever.
And I want to know what they're doing. What other weapons?
Yeah, were they making more scourges? Like, they only need the one. Like, what? Yeah,
Yeah.
what were they making?
What weapons are we modifying? And
Totally.
how are we never see this?
No.
Another question.
Elliot.
So Alder greets Witchfather, and they have a little chit chat about how the civilians are gathering pitchforks, and Alder makes a comment about and piles of wood. I'm like, great reference to the burning times,
And why did she have to say that in mother tongue?
right? Why did she say it in mother tongue?
I don't get it. But sure, Alder. Weird flex.
Weird flex. But I guess just every once in a while, maybe she slips into mother tongue without thinking about it, but it did look intentional. So basically here, I have another question. So male witches mix with civilian population?
Yeah.
So Witchfather's like giving her a report on how one of his men got beat up and how they've seen amongst the civilians that they're gathering pitchforks. So why are the male witches mixing with civilian society?
Yeah, why were they out with a bunch of civilians in like, it sounded like they were in groups. Yeah, like, what were they? Did they just live in that bus?
Did they go on a field trip?
Did they live in that bus is my question. Where's their finishing school?
Yeah, they probably do.
Yeah, but I don't know why they were just, because he made it sound like they're traveling amongst groups of civilians. It wasn't just the gas station. They're like, everywhere we go. Like, where are you guys going?
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you going? Are they going to Home Depot to get more wood to build things? Like, I don't know. It's weird. But
it is weird, and well, my question is, do they live amongst the civilians somehow?
Right. That's what it almost sounded like to me. Like,
sounded like they're going about their everyday lives,
Yeah.
and civilians started picking on them.
Right. Which, can we go back to that line? Because he says, a police officer roughed up one of my men at a gas station for like no reason. Social commentary much about the others getting in trouble from law officers, for no reason. Yeah. So that still exists in this world, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah.
It makes me shiver just to think about
I
that.
know. But so many questions about what do the male witches do when they're not visiting Fort Salem, and where are they?
Thank you.
So, great question.
He also mentions a growing debate in Congress to revoke the accord and disband the army. And he asks her if the Turim were worth pissing everybody off, basically, by doing what they told her not to and going in for the Turim. Because this pisses Alder off, too, that he's questioning her. And she's kind of like, am I in some kind of trouble? Like, how dare you question me? And he says, well, only with the Hague.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't need the Hague's approval. They can like comment on whatever I do afterwards, but they can either join me or not. That's basically it. Like, she makes the rules for the Hague, is what she's saying.
Yeah, I love her line. She's like, I simply extend the invitation to accept my rulings. Exactly. So arrogant. And like, honestly, this is the most like ugly American dialogue ever, which is more social commentary. It's like, America always has this arrogant, self-centered view of everything, and they're like, well, we're the good guys, so like, your opinion, whatever, I'm still gonna do what I'm gonna do because I'm fighting the good fight and I don't need permission. Like,
it's a generalization, but it's how we act in the world. As far as international relations are concerned.
Yes.
Like, we're coming in, we're gonna do what we want to do, and you can get on board or get run over.
Yeah, basically. That is her energy.
That's her attitude. Yep. I like that Witchfather points these things out to Alder because somebody needs to.
Yeah, and everyone's fucking afraid of her, and it doesn't seem like he is super afraid of her.
I don't think he is either, and I don't think she can really do anything to him. Or would.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I wonder, like, in the ranking of the military, like, where does he really lie? Because he almost seems like he's closer to her in level. Like, granted, he's in a separate set of the, I watch the male witches, but like, it almost seems like they're fairly close to being on equal power levels. So,
like, he is the Alder of the male witches, but that doesn't make him above
no,
her.
no, absolutely not. She's top of the food chain, but it seems like he's closer to her than most other like people hierarchy.
Exactly. I feel like he can say things to her that 99.9% of other people
Correct.
can't. The only other person that does that really is Anacostia on occasion, and very rarely Petra questions
Right.
her, but she doesn't really outright say the things like Witchfather does.
Exactly. So I think she's in a bubble, which is part of Sarah's problem, where nobody's telling her the truth because there's always that power dynamic with her. Because the people she's interacting with are all underlings to her. So that's,
Exactly.
she gets in her own head and nobody's pulling her out of it. So I think, like you said, this is important that Witchfather's like trying to get her to see another perspective, because Sarah's just trapped with Sarah's perspective a lot of the time.
I also think that he's not around enough to
Yeah.
really influence her thinking.
Yeah, maybe have the male witches on base. I don't know. Is that crazy? Why are they not on base?
Right?
It's weird. Whatever.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's my question. I like Witchfather.
Yeah, I think he's a good foil to Sarah, honestly.
Exactly. That's it. So from this little interaction, we go to the boys and girls. Tally and Glory are chit-chatting about the boys, and Garrett's just kind of lurking there, and he wants to talk to Tally so bad. And Tally's just kind of like, I'm good. Like, no thanks.
Hillary's right there, literally watching this.
Yeah, Hillary shows up and is right there.
So weird.
And Tally assures Glory that she's fine, that she can just kind of say hi and move on, and she's not stuck on Garrett. Yeah, okay, sure. But
okay, Tally,
lie to yourself a little more.
Mm-hmm.
But when Hillary kind of looks like, what the fuck, when Garrett won't even pay attention to her, really. And I think that he's like telling her, hey, I really need to talk to Tally. So
yeah, 100%.
So he approaches her and he apologizes and he wants to be friends, and he says the most high Atlantic thing ever, something about open invitation to dinner or something at some fancy place. Whatever, Garrett, you should know that that's nothing that's going to interest Tally. But Tally can't really say anything. She's speechless in a way, but Glory kind of rescues her.
Yeah.
And thank God for Glory.
I know. Glory is the bestie Tally really needs right now.
She really is. She's the only one that Tally could really talk to a lot. I mean, she can talk to Abigail, but Abigail's doesn't have the same kind of supportive personality as Glory does. Like what I mean by that is, even though Abigail's becoming more supportive, she's not going to sit there and listen to Tally go on and on and on.
Yeah, I feel
like
Glory and also Glory's known her for years,
a lot longer.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, real quick before we move on to Byron, I just want to comment a couple of things on this interactions. At the very beginning, Glory and Tally are talking about something, and Glory says, "You sound a lot like Tansy, Tally."
Oh, yeah!
And I'm wondering, is this foreshadowing? Because Tally did matchmake Abigail and Adil by accident. Mm-hmm. So is Tally a future matrimonialist, maybe? I don't know. And then Garrett, whole ass lying Garrett, when they're talking, is like, I'm so sorry. I tried to tell you about my upcoming marriage as soon as I could, which is a lie.
It is a lie. He could have told her.
Garrett, oh God. So thank you, Glory.
He wanted like some more makeouts.
Yeah, that was why. This makes me hate Garrett. So like, thank you, Glory, for ending this nonsense, because ew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big ew.
That's all I have.
Garrett. So Byron finds Raelle and greets her in the best way, in a very Byron way, that he's looking for the grumpiest girl in the room. And that describes Raelle perfectly in every scene ever.
Except when Scylla's on screen with her.
Except when Scylla's there. Except when she's under a live oak with Scylla. And she shoots back that she was wondering where that annoying ray of sunshine was. And I love that line as well.
I love it.
It's so cute.
It's cute.
It's the best bro TP.
Mm-hmm.
But he sees her mushroom finger that she used to touch the mycelium. And honestly, it looks like he's like basically he's like, that does not look good, girl. You need to get that taken care of. And it doesn't look like anything I have ever seen. I have seen I've seen dead tissue, and that does not look like dead tissue to me.
No, it looks like fungal colonization.
Yeah, that's what it
looks
is.
like. And if you don't know what that means, in an infectious diseases terms, colonization, what happens is, hate to break this to you, but you have bacteria and fungi just living in your body. You just do. And so there's certain areas of the body that get colonized with certain organisms. And what that means is basically the fungus, in terms of Raelle, like sets up shop in that particular part of the body, and it just kind of lives there. It's not really harming you. It's not helping you either most of the time. It just lives there. Unless like your immune system goes out of whack or something else happens where it can just like opportunistically take over and cause an infection. It's just kind of chilling there. So that's what's happening here. The mycelium is just hanging out on Raelle's finger, just living there. That's what's happening.
She's got a roommate and she didn't even know.
Exactly. I love her stupid ass excuse for why it's there, though. She's like,
I slammed it in the door.
And then he's like, well, it looks like it's dying, which it doesn't, because like dead tissue doesn't look white. So like this whole dialogue is so weird. All the medical dialogue in this episode is a hot mess.
Bad.
It's really bad. I'm like, that's not what that looks like.
I love you ladies, but call us if you need a consult.
Yeah, like dying tissue doesn't look white and fuzzy.
Necrotizing fasciitis does not look white and fuzzy, guys.
No. God, I know. I have a couple patients with that right now. That's not what that looks like.
No, not at all.
Oh my God.
Anyway, man, the
so
stories
really
we could tell. The stories. So the purpose of this was to bring up once again that Raelle has touched the mycelium. We cannot forget that.
No.
We needed to revisit this so that we can send Raelle to the infirmary at some point and get it checked out, which is a whole nother clusterfuck.
Yeah. And I think the other point of the scene is to show that Raelle has other emotions right now. She's grumpy and not just depressed and sad. So
exactly.
It's a step up from last episode.
Grumpy is a little better than completely and utterly lost in the badness of grief.
Yeah, Grumpy's her baseline, so Raelle's getting better.
she's getting back to good.
Yeah.
So she just kind of brushes off his concern and gives us really bad excuse.
Oh my God.
I don't ever want to see Raelle try to lie about stuff like that again.
She's such a bad liar.
Especially to Scylla. Scylla would suss that out in under 0.5 seconds.
She could never lie to Scylla, please.
No, she couldn't.
No.
We see Abigail greet her boys, and they give their condolences on Charvel and tell her that they're available for anything she needs. And it's sweet that they really do want to be there for her and are concerned for her well-being. But she's like, I just want to be alone. I'm like, she's met somebody else, guys.
Yeah.
She wants to be alone, and she's on the verge of like having a little flirt off with Serial Boy.
Yeah, and I like what you said. I think everybody in this conversation is actually being sincere, because all the dialogue with them and Abigail previously is just like playing games. And this is like a very sincere, like friendship kind of like dialogue. So I think that's important and indicative of like where Abigail is at post Charvel, the way like really the Charvel thing really did change the way she sees the world. It's changing her relationships with people. And so I think that's part of what we're seeing here.
Exactly. She doesn't want to play around and get a short boost from these dudes anymore.
Yeah.
She's got other things to deal with and is going in a different direction with her life than she was previously. And the boys, I believe in general, all of the male witches are taught that they're there to support the female witches in general. So it's a combination of that and the fact that they really do care about Abigail and want her to be well and want to do anything they can to help her. So it was a little sweet little scene. And I like how she spoke to them. It was very genuine. And she's like, basically, thanks, but right now I'm, doing stuff by myself.
Yeah, exactly. Growth for Abigail.
Growth. This is like a little weed just growing up in the ground.
It is.
I like it.
It's very cute. And speaking of Abigail, so we follow Abigail, kind of, to Adil, who's somewhere on Fort Salem drawing in the ground with a stick.
It's like my sister when she played softball. That's all she did was draw in the dirt with sticks. She and Adil would have something to talk about.
So that's what Adil's doing. He explains that what he's drawing is some ancient ancestral symbol. It's like a blessing to the earth, is what he says it is. I tried to look up the symbol. I could not figure out where it came from. So if I ever figure it out, I'll let you know.
I want to say it was something that they just, I don't know, because it seemed like something they just came up with.
Very possible. It kind of looks like a Sanskrit letter, but I have no idea what he's doing. But he mentions that it's a blessing to the earth. And Abigail's like, cool. Let's hang out for a minute because I see your guide's gone. And she grabs the stick and then is like, okay, I'm going to draw you an ancient symbol. And it's the smiley face, which is really cute. And I love it because I feel like that's what your sister was probably drawing in the ground at softball. Smiley faces, not these weird symbols.
No, she was not.
And then Abigail notices that he has like I guess a collection of flowers next to him. And she's like, oh, like, why are you collecting flowers? And he explains, his sister Khalida is very, very sick. And Abigail basically is like, well, it's a good thing you're here. We have Colonel Wick, who once regrew 37 frostbitten legs after an ice attack in Bulgaria, which, wow. And Adil very astutely asks, what happened to the 38th leg? Because humans have 2 legs. And Abigail uses that as a transition to be like, well, come walk with me and then I'll tell you. Which, okay, Abigail, that's some good flirting.
Her flirt game is so strong.
I know. So even when she's not like jumping on dudes for charging reasons, she's got good verbal flirting game. Go Abigail.
Yeah, and you can tell she's not after him. She's not after Adil for a charge up. So.
Yep. So Adil takes the bait and they go for a walk. And as they're kind of like walking around, they come across a group of blasters practicing tornadoes. And Abigail just cannot help herself where she's like, isn't it so impressive? One day I'm going to be as good as them or better. And Adil's face just like drops and he just looks appalled and horrified with the war talk. And he just walks away, leaving Abigail really confused. Like, wait, what the fuck just happened? So she goes after him and he explains that all this weather you guys are fighting with has a cost. It causes floods and famine, and people starve and die because of what you guys are doing. Like every war zone has all this death that just surrounds it, and nobody really sees that. And so I think this is another social commentary piece, like the collateral damage of war that goes beyond what happens on the battlefield, and it impacts people in these geographic regions for periods of time that often outlasts the battle. So somebody like Abigail, who's a soldier, you just see the battle. You don't stick around to see what happens after. And Adil, unfortunately, with the Tarim, they're in this position where they're kind of nomadic and they're in this contested part of the world where they're stuck in the collateral damage zone. And so he also mentions something about plagues too that are following, which, I think is important because I feel like Khalida contracted this plague, like specifically because of all this war and this quest for power that's going on with like getting the Tarim songs that they're just trapped in the middle of because of who they were born. And so I think this dialogue is very important for Abigail to hear because, she lived a life where she was just fed propaganda about, the military because she's a 6th generation bellwether. But here's somebody who's like living in war zones, who's telling her a completely different perspective that's very sincere coming from him about what war is really like, because Abigail's on this journey of really learning about, well, what is war when you go to experience it versus like what I've been told. So I think Adil is somebody she really needed to meet to like open her eyes about the world. And so I found this very important dialogue that he's talking about.
Same.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she goes back to her old ways for a hot second.
Yeah, she's on the journey. She's not there yet for seeing the world for what it is and spits out the propaganda of like, well, our work is there to help the weak and the innocent and save lives. And, you know, the collateral damage is like a small price to pay basically for all the good we're doing, which is such rah propaganda stuff. And Adil's like having none of this. And he's like, you are ignorant of the world, which is true because Abigail grew up in the high Atlantic culture and that's all she knows. And she's a baby adult too. Like it's okay that she's ignorant of the world. But he's just pointing this out. And she's like, you're being patronizing and arrogant because she's mad. And Adil just like brushes it off. He's like, maybe I am. And Abigail just keeps going. She's like, I'm a 6th generation bellwether. Like, I know more than the smartest cadet in basic. And then Adil says, well, now who's arrogant? And Abigail doesn't get mad at this. She just like takes it and is like, yeah, I guess I am. And starts laughing because kind of like Alder, like Abigail being a bellwether is like top of the food chain with like the high Atlantic culture and like even the cadets in basic. Like you see people talking shit about her, but like they won't talk shit to her directly because they're afraid of her. So
except for Libba.
Except, well, Libba gets off on this, let's be real. But yeah, so I think this is like kind of like her witch father, where she needs somebody to like cut the crap with her because he doesn't give a shit. She's a bellwether. He's like, I don't care who you are. Like, I'm a Tareem. Like, I don't give a fuck. I will tell you straight to your face the truth. And so I think Abigail really needs somebody to like, again, show her like not only all the bad stuff in the world with the other side of the army perspective, basically, but like also like the bad things about herself or like the things that she can work on. So I think this was important dialogue for her in general, like her personal growth. And so I love it. And
not even, and it can't be anybody else. Adil's in the perfect position to do this.
Exactly.
Because of what he's experienced and where he's coming from, and that the fact that she's obviously attracted to him for another one. But
yeah.
Because let's be honest, that plays into how you interact with someone and what you're willing to take on board from them in some regard. But it's like, these are the things that everyone's been telling her. Everyone has been telling her these negative things, but the only person that could get through to her at the perfect time to get through to her was Adil.
Yeah, because like Raelle's been saying this shit to Abigail the whole time, and she's always like, whatever, Raelle. But with Adil, again, like you said, she's in a place where she's willing to accept this because of the post Charvel stuff. And this is like, yeah,
and the post talking to the dean of war college and realizing
exactly
what her legacy and the bellwether name really means.
Exactly. So yeah, this is like the perfect person to tell her exactly what she needs to hear. And I think it's very significant that Adil does not come from any kind of army culture, which is the exact opposite of Abigail. So she really needed to see the exact opposite perspective on everything that she holds to give her her full growth. So it's a very good scene.
It's also a testament to the character arc and the writing of Abigail in the series, that you have seen her gradually get, you have seen her being a little bit chipped away at. I mean, this is a big step.
Yeah, this is huge. No, the pacing of Abigail's arc is beautiful. It's very well paced. But unfortunately, this comes to an end as a helicopter comes overhead and Adil freaks out and disappears and just runs away. And Abigail's like, wait, it's just supplies. What the hell? And he's gone.
Another reason they're very opposite.
Yep.
So normal to her.
Yep. I mean, it's normal to him too.
Normal to him in a different way.
Exactly. And we'll get to that.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, so back to Scylla, and they're torturing her again.
Can I just say how much I hate watching Scylla get tortured? I hate it.
I'm going to show my masochistic side here because I hate it and love it at the same time. It gives you a chance to see all the emotions.
I know, but I hate it.
Anyway. And they're torturing her with screaming seeds. It's kind of remind me of when they were letting Petra hear all of these seeds that could have been whatever disrupted their work in episode 5, but these are like almost designed to make your ears bleed, basically.
They probably are. And the fact that they have more sensitive ears, this is probably worse for Scylla than it is for us hearing
Yeah,
it.
so keep that in mind. Not only is it going to be louder in the room with her,
Yeah.
it's going to be worse for her since her ears are so much more sensitive than a civilian's would be. And we see Anacostia walk up and just use her foot to close the seed box. Such a badass move.
I know.
But it's like, I'm mad at you right now, Anacostia. So.
Right. I was just gonna say she has so much big witch energy in this episode, but I hate it because it's all directed at hating Scylla, and that makes me so mad.
Exactly. I'm like smad about it. I'm sad and mad. I'm smad.
But Mama Cassia is just enjoying actually having a reason to hate Scylla, and I hate it.
She is. She's really enjoying getting to go in hard on Scylla, but Scylla's holding her own.
Mm-hmm.
And Anacostia tries to link with her again after she turns off the screaming. And I want to know how long Anacostia was standing there with the screaming going on.
Yeah, because you don't hear the door open or close.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
So was she just standing there listening to that too?
Yeah, I really think so. I think Mama Castia she's just enjoying this so much, like actually torturing Scylla. She's just like chilling in the corner, like ha 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 ha. Yeah. She's like, this hurts my ears, but I don't care. It hurts you more. Mama Castia.
Maybe she had earplugs in.
Maybe.
Or she started the screaming seeds, left the room, and then a little while later, came back. Hours later, she comes back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because at this point, Scylla's covering her ears and trying to get as far away from the sound as she can, and like bending over and, ugh, God, I can't. I hate it. I can't with that.
I hate it. It hurts.
No. But Anacostia tries to link with Scylla again, but using all of the big witch energy in her body, Scylla headbutts her.
Yeah, good for you, Scylla. I wish you could have done more.
Good for you.
God.
She deserved it this time.
She deserves it.
And they're having more big witch energy measuring contest about. Scylla says the spree protect their own, and I don't believe that.
No, that was some bullshit.
That was some bullshit.
That was some bullshit.
We've seen how the spree protect. I mean, we'll see. They just. I mean, nobody's.
They threatened her for not getting an invitation to a wedding.
Yeah, and
they choked you. Like,
how many agents do they have infiltrated Fort Salem, and nobody's coming to get you?
Yeah,
no, they're just. But I think Scylla knows that no one would be coming to get her, and she's willing to die for this. So she's willing to die for the cause.
This is just like a fake fuck you to Mama Castia, even though it's empty. But yeah,
it's empty.
It is.
She's just throwing out whatever she can. To get to Anacostia. But who is up for the challenge? I think the headbutt would just make her more mad. Yeah. But whatever. She deserved it. So they're kind of at an impasse at this point. Anacostia can't get in and Scylla can't get out. So yeah, no, totally. But I do love when Mama Castia's like, well, army doesn't fold either. And then Scylla's face goes through a journey where she just looks like genuinely afraid and just like, fuck. Because like, I don't know. I think the torture's getting to her a little bit, but yeah, it is.
And she knows the spree's not coming for her. Like, yeah, I think
she just realizes that this is not going to end. No,
it's not going to end well for her. Yeah.
In any case, it's not going to end well. Either she's going to die, or I think that's really the only option she thinks is going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that I obviously we know that Scylla believes what she believes, and she'll take that to the grave. But still, like, viewing the end of your life in this horrific way is scary, regardless of whether or not you're like, I'm doing this for the greater good. It's still scary. So like, she has every reason to be afraid, to be honest.
Well, she also knows they're not going to kill her until they get the information.
Right. This torture is just going to continue.
So it's just going to go on. So I think the torture, the continuation of the torture is a bigger trigger for Scylla than the actual death part is.
Yeah. Ending it and going off peacefully. Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. So poor Scylla.
I mean, it would be for me too.
Yeah.
I would not be good with torture.
Her conditions were awful. Like,
yeah. I mean, those lights.
Yeah, those 24/7 spotlights.
Yes, 24/7 spotlights, the noise. It's classic like CIA black room torture stuff.
Yeah, later when we're back in the dungeon, there's also water on the floor, so I wonder if they water tortured her, did drip sounds, like, I don't know.
Or like, I'm surprised they didn't shove her in a box and lock it.
Yeah. I don't want to see it, but I'm sure they did
Yeah.
all kinds of awful things to her.
Yeah, that's another thing I want to know. How all did they torture Scylla? Because we see that room full of torture instruments that the civilians used on witches. Does that not get through your head at some point and is as a thing you shouldn't be doing to anybody?
Well, that's what Scylla was saying with the silencing collar at the beginning. She's
Yeah.
like, weren't you wearing one of these, Alder? The irony. Now you're silencing and torturing me, a fellow witch. That's kind of fucked up. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
And I think that's a perspective that people don't really think about a lot. How fucked up it is that the witches are torturing witches now.
Social commentary. Humans do this to humans.
Bleh.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
Nope. Especially when it's Scylla. It makes me very upset.
Yes. It's like, it makes me upset in general, and then you add Scylla, and it's 10 times, 100 times exponentially upset.
So much more upset.
We're such Scylla simps.
I love her so much.
Mm-hmm. But we're going to go to the infirmary where a fixer who obviously didn't actually graduate or go to any kind of fixing school.
Seriously. What? They're like, Colonel Wick's so great. I'm like, are your fixing lessons all with Isadora? Because they don't know anything, these fixers. They're so bad. They
don't know anything. Like, even I, a person who does not deal with any kind of infectious anything diseases except for as they relate to surgery, knows that this is what she's about to say is completely and utterly bananas.
Who is responsible for this dialogue?
Yeah.
Which one of the N women did this? Because this is bad.
This is the only beef I have with them.
I have with these two writers, yes, agreed.
So she's looking at Raelle's finger and she has no idea what it could be, but it could be breakbone or I can't remember how you say ague. Is the
ague, yeah.
Ague. Yeah. So basically, those are old school words for dengue fever and malaria. Where the hell would she pick up that mosquito?
Okay, we have to stop here. The fixer,
Dr. T's in the house.
Yeah, Dr. Theora. Yeah, for those who don't know, I am an infectious diseases clinical pharmacist. This is what I do. This intern, it has to be an intern. This isn't even a resident. This is an intern, bottom of the totem pole. Medical person,
an intern that didn't even read any of her textbooks.
No, did she read the textbook? Like, okay, she picks Raelle's finger, takes a scale of the hyphae colonization, and then says, "Oh, it's probably a mosquito-borne illness." Okay. The hallmarks of both malaria and dengue is high fevers. There's no anything. There's no skin symptoms at all. So where she got skin symptoms, mosquito-borne fever, makes literally no sense. None whatsoever.
She's just pulling stuff out of her ass.
Right. She's like, these words sound scary and you're not going to know what they mean. Is basically the dialogue. But that makes absolutely no sense. What would have made sense is it's probably a fungal infection because that's what they look like. You can see white stuff on skin, which is a fungal cellulitis, which is what this looks like. I can't. Is
it on purpose? Or are we supposed to? Is this an inside joke where the medical people are just bad?
Yeah. What? Okay, we talked about this last episode. Why does nothing good ever happen in this infirmary? Even the diagnoses that happen in this infirmary are just bad. Who is teaching these fixers? They don't know what they're doing. This is concerning.
And also, why would these mosquitoes be anywhere near Salem, Massachusetts?
And malaria.
They're subtropical.
Malaria comes from Africa, the other part of the world, and then dengue is from tropical. How would these mosquitoes get to them in Massachusetts?
Is this a new spree tactic that we don't know about?
Has Sarah Alder, her quest for changing the world, changed mosquito patterns? What the actual fuck? Doesn't make sense. But the symptoms of having a white finger and then going malaria or dengue those are not symptoms of either of those things. It doesn't make sense.
It's like, off screen, was she like taking her temperature and asking her if she had any muscle aches or joint issues?
Yeah, and then when she's like, "Oh, you have no fever," it must be a disease that causes a high fever.
Yeah.
Like, what
the hell?
That makes no sense. Yeah, so all these fixers are really bad. Don't get fixed by any of these people.
Yeah, pretty much. But she takes her little sample and she tells Raelle to keep it clean.
Yeah, to her credit though. wait. To her credit, the fixer did take the specimen and then plate it, like to grow it out, thinking it's an infection. So like that part was good and realistic. The diagnosis was whack, but she's like, let's grow this out on a plate, which is what you do in the micro lab, like in real life. So that part was good.
Yeah, that part, yay, your working diagnosis.
Also, like, clean your finger because I think you have a mosquito-borne illness. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, again, not at all.
No, her diagnosis is crazy, but yeah. What the fuck?
Whatever.
Also, has Raelle tried to scrub that off her finger?
No.
I'm also concerned because it looks like it's loosely encapsulating her finger.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's
right
really in her finger at all.
It's so weird.
Like it's just hanging out. It's like, does she talk to it at night? I don't know. Like, are they friends now?
I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. The whole thing is weird.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Is the thing on her finger, is it CGI or did they put something on her finger?
That's what I was thinking. Why would you CGI that? That seems like a waste. You could just like put something on
That's
her
a
finger.
lot of money to just do that when you could just put something wacky.
Yeah.
I mean, the FX makeup is really great. So
right. I feel like makeup would have been cheaper to do than the CGI this. Anyway, but because their CGI is not great, but they try.
No. They do. Anyway. Well, they don't have the freaking budget.
No, they don't. Give them more money and more time to explain all these things.
Yep.
Anyway. Sorry,
let's go back to. No, I completely am with you, and I'm glad that we discussed it. Let's go from there to Abigail and Adil again. He's telling Abigail that he was scared by the bat or helicopter because that's what comes before the storms and death. So him talking about the grief of losing loved ones and seeing all of this horror gets to Abigail because she can relate, having just gone through Charvel's death and finding her dead and almost dying herself. He talks about that when he hears the elders cry and when his friends are taken from him, it's also something Abigail can relate to. So we're seeing Abigail find all of these common threads with someone who is very opposite of her. That just furthers their relationship as far as where they're going to go from here and what Abigail's taking out of all of this.
But I think another piece of this too is it kind of like parallels Scylla and Raelle a little bit in the fact that they have shared grief that bonds them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's a nice scene where we get to see that develop even more and see Abigail soften even more.
Yeah, because her shirt's open because her emotional armor is being let down.
Ta-da.
And I just wanted to comment really quickly on the bat thing because the fact that Adil, when he hears that sound, is just triggered into like fight or flight, we're about to die, that's a real thing that people in war zones experience. And, you know, there are some kids that growing up in the world now because of like drones and stuff that are just triggered by these sounds because of the horrors of war. So that's another like social commentary thing that people in these afflicted parts of the area, this is real trauma that they experience from these things. And like the people in the army are just like, well, you know, they're just doing their thing. They're great for the greater good, sending supplies. But you can see that is not how the people caught in this view these things. It's very traumatizing.
Yeah. Hearing that sound it just makes them automatically go to that place of panic, and the only thing that follows that is death and destruction.
Exactly. So that's social commentary.
This episode is rife with it. So
yeah,
and when they introduce the terrain, that is when all of this really gets going.
Yeah, I think their big social commentary is the terrain or terrain. We cannot agree on how we say this word. I noticed that in the editing. I'm never going to say it right. I'm sorry. It's just going to keep fluctuating between the two of us.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I'll never say. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Are we saying it wrong or right? I can't remember.
I cannot remember.
We need to go back and listen to the After the Storm.
I think it's Tareem is the real way to say it, but like, yeah, we keep flip flopping. So sorry if you're big Tareem fans. We just,
I think it's one of those apples. Or not apples. What am I trying to say?
Potato thing?
Thank you.
Yeah,
potato,
exactly.
Potato.
Tareem, whatever. We know what we mean.
You know what we mean.
You know what we mean. But speaking of the Tareem, saying it correctly.
He also tells them that they're preparing Khalida's fixing.
Yeah.
So. She offers to wait with him, but he's like, it's going to be a while. Maybe afterwards. Mm-hmm. Hint, hint.
Come by, grab coffee after, girl.
Yeah. Go out, Abigail.
So they make that tentative coffee date, and we follow Adil, I guess, or whatever. We go to the infirmary where nothing good ever happens. Spoiler. You should know, we're in the infirmary. It's going to be bad. So the fixing has begun on Khalida, and it's Colonel Wick and her medical interns, because these women, I swear to God, and they're vocalizing over Khalida's body. And it's this really nice kind of like comforting song. And then it like cuts from them in the Jesus light doing the fixing over to Alder and the biddies hovering creepily like the pack of vultures they are. And
that's a very good way to describe them.
It's what they're doing. Oh, God. And as the fixers are doing their thing, and you kind of see like the black webbing receding. So almost like what they're doing is actually like, getting this ailment off of Khalida. But one of the interns fucks up the seed because no one taught these fixers how to actually do fixing. Wick, this is on you. And then the thing just like takes over because there's a break in the work, and it just like takes over Khalida. It latches onto her vocal cords, I guess, and then like does work to protect itself and undoes everything that fixers just did and fights back. And so the fixers start cowering. The intern that fucked up the seed, it smashed her glasses. It's like, thanks, bitch. And like she starts bleeding from the eyes. Mm-hmm. The biddies literally pile on top of Alder. And it's just Biddy pile. She's in a biddy sandwich right now. And like there's just chaos happening in the infirmary because that's the infirmary. And then eventually the witch plague kind of like stops doing its thing. It's like, whatever, I got my host. Fuck off. I have the big witch energy here. And then Alder's fine. You see Alder pop up and she's just staring at Khalida like, well, fuck. And that's the end.
All I can think of is a Biddy cordon bleu now.
It is, yeah. Literally, or like one of those like molten lava cakes and like
it's a molten Alder cake.
Like, in the middle. They're like, you gotta protect the good stuff. Yeah. It's so funny. I love it. Thank you, biddies.
Thank you, biddies.
But yeah, it's fucked up.
Not cool.
No. So it's all the intern's fault for not knowing how to do work.
F that intern.
Yeah. They're all bad, these interns. They're really bad. Wick, get this shit under control. Like, Isadora has her necros under control. You should get your fixers under control.
Well, Wick is... I don't know what Wick's been doing, but she obviously isn't doing her continuing education.
Yeah.
Just gonna put it that way.
No, Wick is like, I fucked off and I'm doing experiments all over the globe. I ain't got time for these new cadets.
Yeah. She is not up on the...
No.
Doing, I don't know. It just seems like this is below her somehow, even though she's doing directly what Alder wants.
Yeah.
And should be... this is an important thing.
She ain't got time for teaching is the problem. Like, Isadora's like, let me teach you stuff about science. She doesn't want to teach.
I want to be in Isadora's class. I just won't volunteer.
No, don't volunteer for anything ever when it comes to Isadora. Lesson 1.
Yeah.
After that clusterfuck, we leave the infirmary and go to Adil, who's just distraught on a bench. And he's explaining to Abigail that, like, the fixing didn't cure Khalida. And he's beating himself up, essentially, for, like, leaving his family and taking Khalida away from her family while she just dies in like the antithesis of everything they believe in, which is Fort Salem. And Abigail's trying to like console him, and she grabs his hand and she's basically like, well, she's your sister, you did everything you could to try and save her. And then Abigail comes to the realization that there is one thing we haven't tried yet, and because like obviously Wick is doing canon work, and there's somebody we know who's pretty reckless and does off canon work. Let's try that. And so basically, she's hinting at, I'm gonna go get my fixer, and let's try something else. And
She's volunteering Raelle.
Exactly. She's voluntolding Raelle without her knowing to help Khalida. And so they're basically plotting, and then it cuts away from them.
Yeah. So yet Raelle is organizing her stuff back in the barracks for whatever reason.
I know. What is she doing?
What are you doing, woman? She's like throwing clothes around, and I mean, like, are you packing? I don't like.
I think in the beginning, Raelle's like, I'm restless and I can't sit still. So I think she's just like fucking with stuff because she can't sit still right now.
Or she did some laundry and she's just putting it away. Who the hell knows? She's reorganizing her little closet.
She's OCD cleaning like the room because she can't sit still.
Yeah. Well, she's grieving. She's grumpy grieving. So for once, we see Abigail come in, and for once she says she needs Raelle and Tally. But Tally's avoiding Raelle, so she's nowhere to be found. And Abigail goes in with her little speech trying to convince Raelle to come help her by saying, we all saw what you did in linking Raelle. Tally has a golf ball on her head because of it. And that automatically triggers Raelle.
I love this
because she's like, I apologized to her already. But that's not Abigail's point. She's saying, Raelle, you're weird and reckless and you put us in danger all the time.
Again, Abigail doesn't fully know how to talk to Raelle yet.
No.
She's trying, but she doesn't know.
She's trying. Raelle is tired of that kind of talk and starts to walk away, but Abigail finally figures out where she's going wrong and stops insulting her long enough to say that Raelle's powerful and she can do things that no one else can do.
Ding. And
she needs her help. When do you hear Abigail asking for help?
Yeah. Never. This is big.
Yeah. So, but I will also be happy the day Abigail learns to say that stuff first.
Oh my God. I know. Why she didn't leave with that? She's like, Raelle, you're the worst, and you fucked up shit in basics. Yeah. And Ray's like, God damn it. But no, you're great. I need your help.
Yeah, exactly.
She'll get there one day.
All that to say, you're great and powerful, and I need you. You suck, but I need you.
But I need you. That's this whole speech. It's so good.
That would be on that's their tagline as a friendship.
Right.
They both would say that.
Mm-hmm. It's mutual.
It is. So somewhere along the line, they find Tally.
Yeah, what the hell? They're like, Tally's nowhere, and then Tally's with them in the woods 3 seconds later.
Yeah, it's like, where did she just like show up off camera? I'm gonna, because we do our what people are doing off screen. So mine's Tally.
Yes, what was Tally doing off screen?
So Tally was in the mess hall by herself, mumbling while eating Cheerios. Just sitting there mumbling to herself about, that scene where she's where she's with Glory but not talking to Glory.
She's talking at Glory.
She's talking at Glory. She's doing that, but no one's there.
Just the Cheerios. She's talking at her Cheerios.
And then like one mess hall worker walks through and looks at her like, what the fuck is this girl doing?
Yeah.
So she's just like mumbling, leaning over her bowl of dry Cheerios,
right?
Just eating them and talking to herself.
I love it.
About how she's doing the right thing by staying quiet.
Oh, poor Tally.
Yeah.
That's so good. I love it. So I guess she leaves there and then bumps into these two by accident. It's like, oh. And they're like, come on, Tally. There's no time to explain.
Come on, Tally. There's no time to eat Cheerios. We need you.
Yeah, Abigail like takes it, throws it in the trash.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. That is what Tally was doing off screen.
They're walking in the woods to go and meet Adil and Khalida. And Raelle takes this opportunity to ask Tally why she's been avoiding her, which goes nowhere because Tally avoids even that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And then Abigail's like, attention here. Pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Get your heads on, basically. But because they're at the rendezvous point, basically. And Tally starts to sense and see something with her sight, her knower ability. And it turns out to be Adil and Khalida. So Adil's got Khalida in his arms, and he's kind of amazed that she could see them coming. And he compliments Tally on her knower abilities. So we know that we get our second clue that Tally is a very powerful knower.
Yeah, and the way Tally takes this information, she's like taken aback for a second, like she never realized this herself. She's like, oh, okay, I guess. Really?
Exactly.
Very cute.
It is very cute. So Abigail explains that Raelle can do more than the fixers that have failed up to now. And Adil turns to Raelle and says, "You should know that 2 of our people died trying to heal her back home." And you kind of see Raelle take this information in and let that sit with her for a second. But she's Raelle, so she's gonna do it. I mean, there's no question of that.
Right. That doesn't deter her at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she kind of looks at everyone, and then she gets to work trying to fix Khalida. And there's something that I want to note. When she's starting her work and continuing into it, the birds in the area go crazy.
Yeah, sound team. What's going on there? All you hear is crows.
All you hear is crows. And is this a foreshadow?
Mm-hmm.
Are we foreshadowing something here?
Yeah, are we maybe hearkening to certain necro? I don't know, in this scene, maybe. Interesting.
Interesting. Just something to note.
Yep.
So take that as you will.
I'm with you on that.
Thank you. Her voice augments and she starts all of her Christo-pagan nonsense with, "We pass through the waters. I will be with you through the rivers. They shall not flood you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned." And that's one we haven't really heard. Until now.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say about that?
I sure do. The next line. So this is Isaiah 43:2, or however the hell you say that. Sorry if I'm offending you. But the line after that, "you shall not burn," it says, "the flames will not set you ablaze." Does that sound like the spree? Interesting.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. And okay. So I thought this was really interesting because she's like, Adil says, 2 people died trying to save her. So she decides to start with this because after shit goes haywire, she reverts back to the other prayers we've heard her say, but she leads with this, which I thought was very fascinating. So in this whole, whatever you call this kind of like poem or whatever, it's God, basically like the Christian Hebrew God, telling one of his followers, essentially like, "I need you to take back Israel, and like he calls the person, "You are my servant whom I have chosen." So call back to Raelle's name, which means soldier of the Lord or chosen one. So this whole speech in this prayer is about this. And he's like, "Listen, I'm going to be with you when you go on this impossible journey. And no matter what happens, I'm going to protect you." So I'm wondering if Raelle chose this because it's like a much more powerful type of passage versus the other ones that she normally does. And it's kind of like, I'm choosing you to do this impossible task and I'm going to protect you. So I'm wondering if it also like protects Raelle a bit more from the ailment that she's about to take on because yeah. So I thought that was really fascinating. So it's like the language in it is, "You are the chosen one," basically, and it's more of a like protection spell for the chosen one. So I think maybe that's why she led with this.
Yep. I loved it. I love that they're throwing all this theology in there. It's just really cool. And I know that that's something that you guys enjoy when we talk about as well. So
hydrate for Lesbian Jesus, guys.
Hydrate for Lesbian Jesus.
This is Lesbian Jesus.
At her core.
One thing also I just wanted to note, to go back to Adil, I love the terminology stuff because in the army they call the healers fixers, but he calls them healers. So I love that it's like outside of the army, like the terminology for these types of magics have different terms. So I love that little like world building thing there too.
in the world of army terminology, fixer does sound something more like the army would use rather
Totally.
than healers.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that.
Healers is a little too passive.
Exactly.
But we hear more sounds like, or the wind comes up and then we hear cracking like a tree's falling somewhere. And then Khalida starts vocalizing spontaneously and they're being blown. Like you can get the sense that if they don't really brace themselves, they're going to be blown away by this wind. And then Adil grabs Abigail's hand, which was very like in that frame. Like they wanted you to see that.
Yeah. So het sighting.
Yeah. Hello. So the wind dies down and the witch plague is now everywhere on Khalida. And they all gather and try to get it off of her with their hands.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck they were doing. Well, because
is that?
Again, because this plague thing is so weird. It's like externally on her body. So yeah, like I would be clutching at it too because it's like on her skin.
Mm-hmm. So they're trying to brush it or get
it, rip it off of her. I guess. Yeah.
Off of her body, and Raelle continues back with her healing chant, and then Tally says, "Wait." And you see the plague fall away from Khalida's body and sink into the ground. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, awesome, yay!"
Woo,
but Raelle's like, "Whoa. Wait a minute. What the fuck just happened?
Danger.
It wasn't me. I don't have any of the plague on me. So I don't know what's going on." Raelle is just confused at that point. And then Khalida gets up and in Khalida mode asks where they are. And Adil tells her they're at Fort Salem. And then she turns to Raelle and goes, "Raelle, call her." Which would startle me too.
Yeah.
And Raelle's like, "How do you know my name?"
What the fuck?
And Khalida says, "You're the witch that saved my life. Thank you." So you get the sense that through Raelle linking with Khalida, she got some of Raelle in her mind.
Yeah.
And so that kind of tells you how powerful Khalida is.
Khalida has a ridiculous amount of big witch energy.
She really does.
Ridiculous.
Big.
Like she was just dying from a plague and then just gets up and is like, "Where the fuck are we? Thanks, savior." Like without even
Let's move on.
No bullshit. Yeah.
I'm hungry.
Yeah. Food.
I need food and water.
I need food and water. No bullshit.
Obviously, I need to feed this body. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
So everyone's amused by Khalida at that point.
As they should be. But
Raelle's just wanting to know what the hell's going on. Yeah. Adil tells her that he's grateful and that she has extraordinary gifts. And Raelle says it was nothing, as Raelle would.
Yeah.
And Adil says it was far more than that. Raelle, you're a fucking badass. Accept it.
But also Raelle's like, I didn't do this. Like she knows. She's like, I know this wasn't me, so what the fuck?
And that's the thing is like she knows it wasn't normal.
Yeah.
It was her, but it was augmented her.
Yep.
What's happening is she doesn't understand where the witch plague went instead of on her. But you'll find out.
Right. We'll
find out.
Mm-hmm. But before we exit that scene, I just wanted to talk for a second about Adil and Khalida real quick. Because we went through a couple episodes ago, people's names and what they mean. So just a second about Adil and Khalida. So both of those names have Arabic origins. So same origin for Tarim names. Adil's name means fair and just. And you can kind of see that with Adil and his behavior. And Khalida's, very interesting, means eternal life or immortal. So I feel like that will come into play perhaps in season 3 with Khalida, but
I've always gotten a sense that Khalida is a soul that's born over and over but keeps the knowledge, maybe.
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel. That's how they portray her.
Yeah. Elliot says in After the Storm that Khalida is like stupidly powerful, and in the Tarim culture, she's like not a high priestess, but she's pretty close up to that. So you're definitely onto something with like, she's like a wise soul that's like, she's like anointed in their, whatever their religious structure is.
Yep.
So yeah, that's why like getting her particularly out of the Tarim and was like a big deal. Cause like, I think she has cultural significance to the Tarim, not just that she's Adil's sister. Yeah. So
she's a spiritual figure of sorts.
Totally. Yeah. So it's right there in the name, guys. Alrighty.
Yeah.
So after that perplexing / very cool healing scene, we shoot over.
I also wanted to point out that
sorry,
we were talking about tactile. The Abigail and Tally both touch Raelle before they leave.
They do. They pat Raelle.
Yeah, and it's not like a pat even. Like they squeeze
her arm.
where they like her arm and her shoulder. I was like, y'all guys cute.
They are bond.
I'm sorry, I had to point.
No, like they're genuinely proud of each other, which is very cute. Thank you for pointing that out. All right, so after that, we are going to shoot back over to the lab with Isadora in her super sterile scientist light, very intensely dissecting a mushroom. Like she has like a surgical spotlight and like a magnifying glass with her scalpel and forceps. And so
it's kind of sexy.
I mean, it's Isadora, so yes. But question is like, why is she doing this? So I just want to take a second to talk about the mycelium and mushroom stuff because I think that's important. So the word mycelium, what it really means is it's like, I keep using the term hyphae because that's like that's the term for it. But basically it's like fungal threads, which is why the mycelium looks like this white webbing kind of thing. So that's like a life stage of fungi or mushrooms. And so the mushroom part is a fruiting body that can sprout from a mycelium. So what Isadora is doing is she's examining a piece of the mycelium, a fruiting body. And she's probably doing that for Isadora reasons, but maybe as like a health checkup or to study the mycelium, potentially. So that's what she's actually doing. And she's in the room with the mycelium. So that's why I think it's the mycelium fruiting body she's looking at. And when she does that, she slices it open and pulls out this black squid-looking thing. And when she's examining it, you see that it's pulsating like it has a heartbeat, which is why I think this thing is living and not just like a virus, because viruses wouldn't do that. And at first she's like, oh my god, I made a new discovery. This is great. But then she's like, wait, why the fuck is this in the mycelium?
Mm-hmm.
And then she walks up to the mycelium, which is the big hyphenated thing that the mushroom came from. And I just want to note the colors in the mycelium when she first looks at it. So in the last episode where Raelle came into the lab, the mycelium was just white. Just this very white, fluffy looking thing. When Isadora looks at it, there's kind of a gold tinge to it, and there's pink. And shout out to a friend of the podcast, Gemma. Hi, Gemma, who talked to me about this because we're trying to figure out the colors. And I think there's a reason for this. So the gold, I think, is kind of obvious because Raelle touched the mycelium. So it's quote unquote colonized Raelle. So they're kind of connected. But the pink was interesting. So I was trying to figure this out. So sometimes in nature, like mycelium can be pink, but it's usually all pink when that's happening. Or if there's, which is not what's happening with this mycelium. It's like white with some pink spots. And so that can sometimes mean like a contamination, like another species is like in with the primary
infiltrating.
Mycelium. Yeah. So it can be like more than one species of mycelial stuff in there, which I don't think is what's happening here. I think this is more of a color theory thing. So pink as a color can mean like love, kindness, compassion. It's associated, as we all know, with like femininity and like women. So I think hence the title of this episode, Mother Mycelium. And I think what's happening here is that it also can mean like life, which is Gemma's take. Thanks, Gemma. And I think what's happening here is that as we see when Isadora is staring at the mycelium, you start seeing the black webbing. So I think the compassion component is that the mycelium has colonized Raelle's finger. So when Raelle was doing this work that's about, I will protect you, chosen one, I think the mycelium is protecting Raelle when Raelle did the spell. So Raelle did try to take on the ailment, But the mycelium, in an act of compassion, as a mother would, took on the ailment for Raelle. So that's why it's in the mycelium. So I think that's what's happening here. And in that regard, it gave Khalida life, or a heartbeat, hence the pink that was already in the mycelium before the witch plague got there.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So when the black webbing takes over the mycelium, Isadora freaks the fuck out, drops her forceps in the little black thing, and the little black thing starts shriveling. So I think that's also indicating that at this point, the witch plague needs a host. Otherwise, it can't survive. Because out of the mushroom, the heartbeat stops and it starts shriveling like it's dying. So the question is, what the fuck happens when the witch plague goes in the mycelium? Is this ever explained?
No.
No, it's never explained. So put a pin in this, because witch plague has infiltrated the mycelium somehow. But I have to add one more thing. What was Isadora doing off screen? Bonus segment. Because I think after she drops this and freaks the fuck out, she goes back to her scientist desk and like pushes this alarm, and like it locks all the doors in the lab and all these sirens start going off. And I think she gets the necros for like this emergency session where they have to pull this all-nighter in the lab to figure out what the fuck is going on with the mycelium. And they create profungals to like save it. And I think they spend a lot of time with this mycelium to try and like figure out what the fuck's happening, because this is pretty huge and scary.
Well, I mean, and they wouldn't know that this is how it happened.
Totally. No, they don't know how this happened, but like she's like, something is invading the mycelium. What is this black thing? So I think they were doing that.
They had no way of knowing that instead of infiltrating Raelle, it sunk into the ground and got to the mycelium.
Yeah, which is the other piece, because when Raelle took on the ailment, everybody put their hand in the ground, including Raelle. So potentially that's how it got there too. But
there you go.
Yeah, Isadora and the labs and the necros in the lab pulled an all-nighter to figure out what the fuck's happening.
I love it. Necro emergency.
It's a necro emergency. Because I wouldn't put it past Isadora to literally lock everybody who was in the lab and be like, nope, I don't care what you were doing. We're doing this now. You're trapped in here with me.
Yep. Nobody eats until we figure this out.
No. Hands off the mushrooms. They're not for eating. Dissect.
Yep.
But after that, I don't know if you have anything about the mycelium piece.
No, I think you like covered that beautifully.
Thank you.
You and Gemma, anyway.
Again, thank you, friend of the podcast, Gemma. We love you.
Yes, we do.
But after that, we shoot on back to the infirmary, where nothing weird is happening, except Alder is creepily watching Adil feed Khalida. And she's talking with Wick, and Wick's like, I don't know, he just came in and said it was a miracle. I guess my work is done. Wick, come on, girl.
Hi.
Yeah, what the again, Wick doesn't want to be here. And Sarah, we get her glorious angry jaw muscles. And she's just looking at this like, miracles don't fucking exist. That's some bullshit. And I just cut away.
Yep. Why are you so creepy?
I know.
Like, I know you're intently focusing on
creepy.
how much you want these Tareem songs, but come on,
She's
lady.
always lurking in the shadows watching Khalida. It's so weird.
Oh my god,
so
poor
weird.
Khalida.
I know. Anyway, so
it's all right. Khalida's up to the challenge.
So Alder's being a Scrooge here. She's like, oh, she's better, and I didn't save her. It's bullshit. Yeah, whatever.
Well, now Khalida doesn't know her. Except for letting them stay there.
Exactly.
I really don't like this next scene that much.
Ugh. Just gloss over it as much as possible.
Okay.
We don't need to
so
dwell on this.
basically, Tally and Garrett decide to be friends.
Yep.
Except not. And then stuff happens.
Yeah, then Tally gets thirsty, and that's the end of that scene.
Tally gets thirsty when he takes her hand, and then they go at it.
I also have to note at the beginning, the lesbian Jesus light is shining on him. Garrett, stop harnessing Our Lady of Thirst's like.
Yeah, stop.
Light. Just stop it. God.
Get your own light.
Get your own light, bitch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, she's trying to make him leave, and then he just pulls the, I'm gonna catch your hand, girl.
But to Tally's point, though, she is in a place where she's kind of spiraling, and she does have her own shit going on. She's just like, I need a distraction. You're distracting. Whatever.
She's picking up Abigail vibes now.
Yeah, she's becoming the fuck boy. They're all, you said, they're all like rubbing off on each other.
Taking on components of the other.
Yeah. Totally.
So she's using Garrett to forget stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, fair enough, girl. Go get it.
But also, Garrett, I hate
I mean,
you now.
Garrett deserves it.
Yeah.
Deserves it in the way that she's not being with him because she wants to be with him.
Right. She's not emotionally invested in this at all.
Right.
She's using him like Abigail uses her dudes usually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
whatever.
We can go to Abigail and Adil, which is a very much more pleasant.
Yeah, I know. Let's go to these hets. They're better.
Yeah, exactly. These hets are the hets we're cheering for.
We're cheering for them.
So they're walking across the grounds, and Abigail wants to know what they're going to do now that Khalida's healed. And Adil's kind of like, well, I don't know. I guess we'll just go wherever Khalida wants to go.
She's the boss.
She's the boss. Have you met her?
I know. I love it.
And Abigail's just trying to come up with every single reason she can think of for them to stay longer, which is fair.
She's like, you haven't played Biddy Risk yet. Come on.
Yeah, come on. We haven't played Biddy Risk. You haven't seen all the torture devices.
Right. Come on. There's so much more into this Fort Salem than the infirmary.
Exactly. Get out of the infirmary.
Seriously.
I'll give you a tour of my bedroom.
Yeah. That's what Abigail really wants to do.
My bunk, if you will. I'll make sure my roommates aren't there. But he holds out his hand and he wants to thank her. And then she kind of is like, you don't need to thank me. But he's like, please. So she takes his hand and then he vocalizes a seed and they disappear. And they're in this muted between space. So you kind of get the sense that they're in between the reality of existing and kind of not existing in a way. And then Abigail says, it's as if I'm everything and nothing at once, which is so poignant. I love that line.
Me too. And then he flips on his flirting game with his line.
He's got game. Boy's got game. He says, right now you are everything, and they kiss.
It's very cute.
It's so cute. And then two cadets pass by and Abigail ruins it by asking if he can imagine the military implications of going invisible.
Oh God, Abigail. Again, she hasn't broken her bellwether training yet.
Not yet. Oh gosh. He's like, yes, I can imagine what the military can do with this power, and walks away.
Yeah, they get out of that plane of existence. But can I say real quick, at the beginning, when they go to disappear, there's like cadets walking all over the place.
Yeah, all over.
No one sees them disappear. Notices. Yeah, again, proof that everybody on the space is a bad spy. They're just oblivious to their surroundings, which is bad when you're a soldier. You're supposed to be like,
you people ever use your eyeballs?
Nobody notices this. Like, they're out in the open. It's wild.
They're all too busy gossiping.
Yeah, you know what? You are absolutely correct. They're too busy gossiping.
Which you would think that gossiping about this would be a great idea.
I'm saying, right. They're like, Abigail just disappeared with that dude.
Exactly.
But no, nobody notices because they're bad spies.
But we did get our first kiss with Abigail and Adil.
Yeah, well played, people.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Play you. He's not playing.
But no, they're actually not playing.
He's a very sincere guy.
Yeah. They're both being sincere, which is important for Abigail.
Very important. It's the first time she's ever been like this
with like anybody. Like the other character she was very sincere with was just Charvel, really. Like naturally sincere with. So I think it's a big character development for Abigail, you know,
especially since she knew Charvel since she was born.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's very big for her to do that with to basically a stranger, which is pretty cool for her. Okay, so we made it.
It's time to do this thing.
It's time. We're in blue light. So we all know where this is headed. And Raelle is dead asleep in her barracks when Mama Costia and some underlings come in like they own the place, knock out all the unit members with, I guess, the sleep induction that the army teaches you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the underlings kidnaps Raelle and they leave. And Mama Costia this whole time is just like shining the flashlight at everybody. And she looks like she's all business. Like she has zero remorse for what she's doing right now, which they're kidnapping army people for nefarious reasons. So it really speaks lengths about the volume, it speaks volumes about the lengths people are willing to go through for the stuff they believe in. So this goes through all the people, not just the spree. And then we cut to the dungeon where Raelle's on the disgusting floor, unconscious. And Scylla is just whispering the name Raelle over and over again until Raelle finally wakes up. And Scylla's face, like Scylla's just like leaning out of the chair as far as she possibly can against these shackles and just looks relieved to see Raelle. But I think she's worried that Raelle's not okay and is trying to make sure she's okay, like wake her up.
Yeah.
And then Raelle wakes up and immediately starts crying because she's like, this can't be real. Like, you're dead. And Scylla like barely lets her finish getting this out before she's like, it's me. No, it's really me. Like, come over here and check for yourself.
Yeah.
And Raelle just like, they both actually in that moment when Raelle's like getting closer, just like let all of their emotions out. Like, it's like the dam was breached. It was like being battered for like this whole time, and finally it breaches and just the flood. It all just comes out. And their music starts playing in the background. Note that. And Raelle crawls over, and then as she's getting closer, she like realizes this is real, and then she's like, "Oh my god!" And then just like grabs Scylla's face and just starts sobbing and kissing her, and you know, because that makes it real, you know. And then she just starts. The first thing she says is, "Did they hurt you?" Over and over, but Scylla doesn't answer this question because I think she doesn't want to burden Raelle with the yes. And also, she's like, I know we don't have time. This is a game. So she just gets to the point and makes the most of the time. And she's like, listen, you're going to start hearing horrible things about me. And while she's delivering this, like, Scylla's like, again, like leaning against the shackles with her hands, trying to like grab Raelle. Cause like for her, like, this might be the last time she's ever with Raelle and ever gets to touch Raelle because she knows what's happening. And Raelle's just like, what do you mean? Who is they? And Scylla's just like, all of them. Like, just don't, please, please, please don't believe everything they tell you. And right now, Scylla's crying, like, along with Raelle. And that's very un-Scylla-like, based on the behavior we've seen so far. Like, this thing with Raelle is what's breaking her. And Raelle's just very confused because Scylla's not explaining. And she's like, well, why? Why are you being tortured? Why are they doing this to you? And Scylla gives the most honest answer ever and says, they want something I cannot give them. And it goes to show you that even in this position, like Scylla, when Scylla believes something, she really believes it and believes it's worth dying for. And she holds that very dearly to herself. But Raelle's like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And Scylla's voice starts cracking and she's like, look, it's all I can tell you. It's kind of all you need to know. It doesn't even matter. What matters is that I love you and I would never do anything to hurt you. Like, please, please believe me that I would never hurt you. And, you know, again, Scylla starts like sobbing when she says this. And I think this is really what she's afraid of now. It's not so much the torture. It's not so much the dying. I think she's kind of like, doesn't want to go through it, but she's accepted it. That's what's going to happen based on her beliefs. But I think she's really afraid of Raelle hating her and really believing that she's horrible at all these things. But Raelle is Raelle. And of course she's like, well, I believe you and I love you. And she says, I'm so sorry I didn't say it sooner. And that, again, Taylor mentioned that in After a Storm. That's something that's been weighing on Raelle since the wedding. And she kind of was beating herself up that she didn't say it sooner, and then Scylla was just gone before she could even say it. And I think that's something that sticks with Raelle going forward. Like, life is short and you got to make the most of the time that you have, and things can just go upside down really quickly. So like, carpe diem, girl, you got to do what you got to do today. Like, there might not be a tomorrow. And I think this really sticks with Raelle, and that comes out here. And then Raylla just starts kissing Scylla everywhere she can before the underlings come back. And they knock out Raelle and literally drag her away. And Scylla starts screaming.
Her face.
And it hurts so bad. And Raelle is conscious at this point and reaching for her, like in the salva scene, and screaming back. And then Mama Costia rolls in and just knocks Raelle out without Raelle seeing her. And then Scylla screams again and screams no, and her face contorts. And I have to say, Amalia talks about this scene and where her inspiration came from. And this like desperate, gut-wrenching scream that she's doing, she said she referenced Gollum from Lord of the Rings when he lost his precious. And that's what she's channeling in these screams. And that's how Scylla sees Raelle. Like, Raelle is the most precious thing in the world to her that just got ripped away from her. And that's where this emotion is coming from. It's just like the ultimate loss. And Mama Costia, again, was just like, perfect. This is what I wanted. She goes up to Scylla and uses this devastating emotional breakdown she's having as the opportunity to force the linking. Because she knew, I think she knew when Raelle, based on Raelle's behavior and based on Scylla at the wedding, when she was like, I have deep feelings for Raelle, that tipped off Mama Costia that this was the thing that was going to break her. And it did.
The only thing that broke her.
Mm-hmm.
You can torture Scylla physically, you can torture her with work, mentally, whatever you want, but the only thing that breaks her is Raelle.
Yep, because Scylla, big witch energy Ramshorn, didn't break for Sarah Alder.
Nope,
she broke here.
The oldest, most powerful witch in the world.
Yeah, no, Scylla was like, yeah, no. But she breaks here.
But Lesbian Jesus, on the other hand.
Lesbian Jesus broke Scylla.
The only one to ever get past the defenses.
Yeah. So it almost like if she never met Raelle and somehow got captured, there was no breaking Scylla.
No.
Honestly. This is what breaks Scylla. Anything else about that scene before we go to the linking?
Can I cry now?
Now? This scene is so hard to watch.
The behind the scenes information is really great on this scene when they talk about how much how in between they would hold on to each other and just cry. Can you imagine how dehydrated they were?
I mean, look at them, yeah.
And Amalia, being Amalia, was so committed that she just freaking sat in that chair all day. I was like, she was in it. She was in it 1,000% for that whole time they were filming that.
It hurts, but they delivered.
They very much delivered. And I remember Taylor talking about how when they pulled her out of the cell, how she was outside hearing Amalia scream and just breaking down herself.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a big thing to go through together. They're acting, but at the same time, those emotions are real in the moment. Then you have to shake that off and go home.
Or do it again.
Or do it again for the third, fourth, fifth, however many times.
Yeah. So kudos to you guys. You did an awesome job.
It's one of the best scenes in the series, period.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rife with raw emotion that they brought through. So it's very, hard to watch, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
So after that,
we go into the spree vision. So Mama Costia gets her link. And we get pre-murder at the mall Scylla. So she's in the red coat. So this is the little glimpses that Mama Costia was getting earlier with the Alder interrogation. But now we get the full thing because Scylla's walls are all down. And Scylla, with her little red coat, goes into an elevator and presses a button for the 6th floor. And some dude gets in the elevator with her. And then he starts saying, oh, wow, the 6th floor? I've never been there. Who says this to somebody in an elevator?
Is he trying to start a conversation because she's pretty or something?
I don't know.
Is he trying to hit on her?
It's so weird. Who says this? Like, oh, you're going to that floor? I've never been there. Like, bitch, we don't care. Why would she care?
Who the fuck wants to know where you've been?
This is the worst elevator small talk ever. And she's just like, ew. And pushes him. And it's like, there's no 6th floor. Stop talking to me. And then we see through his vision that when he looks back at the buttons, there is no floor 6. So it like shows you like when they're pushing, like how that really distorts the reality of the person that's getting pushed. And Scylla's like, great, this guy stopped talking to me. And then Scylla cuts into this room somewhere on the 6th floor with this spree woman. And like Elliot.
Scares the shit out of me.
Elliot, this woman is wildly attractive. Where has she been all season? We don't even get her name. Like, I would like prequels with this mysterious beauty. Elliot, come on now.
I don't, because she scares the shit out of me.
I love her. Who is this woman? And so the spree woman is like, we've been expecting you, Scylla. we're gonna get you started right away. Let's go. And they walk through this room, and you see like in the inflatable like pool toys. There's somebody messing with balloons, and Scylla asks, "Well, can I choose my own vessel? Because like, it's my first spree mission. This sounds exciting." And the HBIC is like, everybody gets a balloon first. Calm down. And then when Scylla approaches the balloon table, screaming happens in the background. Like, where did the screaming even come from? Like, how is this happening? I don't fully understand this, but Scylla looks scared. Like, you see fear flash across her face when the screaming happens, and she asks, "Well, what the fuck was that?" Like, she's all of us. And the spree agent is like, "That's the sound of suffering."
She's too happy about it. That's what scares me. She loves this torture.
But I think that this word is key, like suffering. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "Don't be afraid. Like, you need to crack a few eggs, right?" And this is the moment you're going to stop being complicit in their evil. So this is like the spree pop propaganda pep talk, because again, they view the army and conscription, all this stuff as evil. And we're going to crack a few eggs to make the evil stop. And she gives Scylla the balloon, and she's like, "All right, go." And Scylla gets in the elevator. And the spree agent's words keep replaying in her mind that she just said. And you kind of see this like contortion happening across her face. And like she's conflicted or nervous or scared about this. And I think it has to do with the suffering component. Like Scylla wants change in the world, but I don't think she's down with the suffering piece. Yeah. Like
that's
really,
not
like
really her
no, that's not really what she wants. But I think again, in her quest for achieving justice, for getting rid of the evil, for doing what she believes in, I think she's willing to look past it. But it's not something Scylla's like giddy about.
No,
she's not a sociopath who's like, "Yeah, let's murder bitches, whatever." I think that's what gets to her, and I think that's why the scene in the elevator is really important, because it's that conflict that you kind of brought up when she finds Raelle later, and she's like, "Well, why do I have to do this with the spree? Is maybe there's a better way?" So I think in this moment she's like, "Well, is this really the best way to get what I want?" But Scylla's young and doesn't have any power really, so
this is the only game in town that's
correct
fighting against the system.
Exactly. They're the only organized group that's doing this. Yeah, Elliot's talked about that. And yeah, I think that this is an important moment for Scylla.
Because she can't do things on her own. There's no fighting the system on your own.
No.
Like that. So
no, this isn't superhero movies. You can't just have one vigilante who changes the world. That's not how the world works. To change a system, you need a large uprising of people to achieve that. So Scylla gets that, I think.
And to some degree. Yeah, it was either the spree or nothing.
Or nothing. You're just, she spent a life in hiding, and then eventually the army's going to get me like they get my parents and killed me. And then what? I achieved nothing. I might as well join a group that's trying to change something and die doing that, because at least that was something versus hiding.
I just feel like she bought into some of the propaganda, but she didn't buy into the violence in mass of just causing all of this suffering. Like Scylla has no problem with violence when there's a very good purpose for it. Like we'll see very much later, but
I think she can justify the violence to a degree because she's like, well, all this violence is happening to witches. So you guys threw the first stone, basically. But yeah, I just don't think it fully sits well with her, where she's like, yeah, she's not brainwashed to the point where she's like, yeah, whatever, let's just kill some bitches. She's
I don't think you can brainwash Scylla to that point, though.
No,
I don't think that she's that kind of.
She has mental fortitude. You can. But I think all the things she does by choice. She's not doing it because she's brainwashed. She, to some degree, believes in these things, but
she committed.
Correct. She decided to commit to this. She's like, well, it's for the greater good. Even though it makes me uncomfortable, I'm going to do it because this is the only game in town, like you said. And this is their playbook. So I'm in the playbook now. And she leaves and goes to get in the car that we saw in the pilot. But before she gets in the car, we see a reflection of the building, which has an address and it says Baylord Auto.
Like she stands there for an inordinate amount of time just so they can see this.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, let me pose. I look good. Last time I'm going to see my face for a while. And then she gets in the car. She buckles the balloon in the back seat and takes the cigarette lighter, lights her face on fire. And then we see she transforms into the hazel-eyed, brown-haired girl from the opening scene in the pilot. So if anybody out there is so confused about who the murder at the mall girl was, it is Scylla. This is them showing us.
There you go. You have your confirmation 100%.
There's your confirmation.
Not only does she have the balloon, she's got the face.
And the same car.
And the same car.
And the jacket. This was Scylla.
And the jacket.
She did the murder at the mall.
Murder at the mall. I just feel like there should be a song.
Murder at the mall. If anyone wants to write us that, we'd love you forever.
Yeah, write us a song.
Write us a song. But after we get Murder at the Mall, girl, before she goes to do that, we kind of linking back to Mama Costia. And for a hot second, she just looks like, whew, okay, that was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I got what I wanted. And Scylla slumps forward and just sobs hysterically because Scylla literally just lost everything. Like, she lost Raelle. And the one thing she couldn't give the army was just taken from her right then and there. So she lost it's over for Scylla. They have no reason to keep her anymore. That's it. And she just gives into her emotions, just sobs. And Mama Costia has the audacity to give her this fake ass, sorry, Scylla, gotta break a few eggs, and just leaves her in the cell because she loves hating Scylla and I hate it.
For some reason.
I hate it, Mama Costia.
Girl. I'm not about it.
No.
You just like, I understand that in Anacostia mind, this is a terrorist that, and she does, and I think she obviously does have some feelings of this is a girl that's done bad things, but the way that she doesn't get to that stage yet. Right now, she, like you said, she's still in the gleefully hating Scylla club. So I don't know. It's slightly disturbing.
It's disturbing.
And I think it comes down to also the fact that we're such big Scylla fans.
That's really what it is. I just hate seeing anybody torture Scylla. It makes me upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So objectively,
I get it.
I
hate it because of irrational reasons.
Like, obviously this is how it was going to play out because in their roles, what they are, as far as Anacostia being through and through army and Scylla being an independent, outside of the box, thinking against the system kind of person, they're obviously going to be very at odds. And obviously it was Anacostia's job to get that information because it's a terrorist organization to her that they need to stop.
And also, I think it's important it's Mama Costia because Mama Costia and Scylla have the orphan thing in common.
Mm-hmm.
But they are where they are because they had different paths presented to them.
Exactly.
So again, it's weird foiling that it's like, well, you could have been me, but you chose to be you. And we're on opposite sides. So it's interesting in that aspect too, that it is the two of them specifically.
Yeah, they grew up in very different ways as far as Scylla being on the run and Mama Costia being a fosterling. So she was always in the army sphere, and Scylla was always running from the army.
Correct.
And being taught anti-army things.
Yeah, so it's like that could have been you, Mama Costia, if you weren't adopted by the army. Like, that's kind of like the implication. So it's cool that it's them for that.
Yeah,
reason.
it really is. It had to be them for the story to go where it goes.
Totally. It's fun.
And also, it's okay because we'll get back to loving Mama Costia soon.
Yeah, in this episode, I was like, oh, I forgot I hated you in this episode. What you do to Scylla.
Like, you know how every once in a while your friend will do something and you like, I hate you for that. But at the same time, you love them.
Exactly. That's apt.
That's what's going on. From that emotional freaking train wreck / roller coaster, I feel like I just died on the Slitterbahn or something.
Yes.
You can look that up if you don't know what it is. Go down a YouTube rabbit hole with that. But Anacostia reports to Alder and tells her about Baylord Auto and that it's an armory embedded in a factory building and that there's a considerable civilian presence, which Alder says is to be expected considering the MO of the spree, how they hide amongst the civilians. And she can tell, basically she praises Anacostia, and who looks happy about that. But when Alder goes to walk away, she can tell Anacostia wants to say more. So she stops and is like, okay, what else? And Anacostia brings up that when she linked with Scylla, she sensed a trace of regret, which goes back to your elevator scene
Ding.
that you talked about.
That's why.
Exactly. It said that she wavered. Alder is like, why are you basically like, why are you telling me this? You have a soft spot for orphans and all that. So that's cool. Bye-bye.
I love
So
how when she says she's explaining well, I sensed regret. She wavered. The biddies look shook.
yeah.
Almost like Alder really, really thinks Scylla is this monster, and then the biddies are really shocked, projecting Alder's shock to hear this. It's
Yeah.
pretty weird.
It's like, okay, that's weird, but whatever. It's concerning. Alder's take on the spree. Where her mind is with them. Basically, she's not concerned with anything Scylla did or did not feel. It's new information to her that she didn't expect. But I feel like she ultimately still feels like Scylla is expendable, a murderer, and the enemy.
Yeah, she cast her in the black and is like, there's no gray here. It's just she's bad, evil.
Where Mama Costi is kind of being like, hey, she's not all bad. Maybe we can work with her and get her on our side.
And not kill witches?
Yeah, can we not right? Kill our sisters?
Right.
But that's something she doesn't bring up at that point. She doesn't go there. But it's importantly one of the first. It's like the first little inkling that you get that Anacostia is not jiving with everything Alder's putting out energy wise. So she's not. She's kind of like, I don't know about this. Starting to question her mentor a little bit. Very, very big thing.
Yeah.
For Anacostia and for the story.
And then I love Lynn's take on this in the After the Storm, where she talks about when Anacostia, you see her questioning what Alder's doing for the first time. And Lynn comments that Alder doesn't recognize the shift in her own behavior, but Anacostia sees it because Anacostia grew up around her. And so I thought that was fascinating. So it's almost like the spree stuff is just consuming Alder, and Alder, without realizing it, is becoming more extreme, just like everybody else in this world. She's susceptible to it too, but she doesn't recognize her own behavior shift, which is fascinating. And that's such a human thing, right? It's like when you get trapped in whatever is occupying your mind or weighing on you, you don't realize
blinders.
Yeah, it's blinders. It's like blinders on a racehorse. You don't recognize the things around you, and you don't recognize your own behavior. So it's fascinating that it's Anacostia that picked up that, and that Lynn is like, Alder doesn't know she's doing this. That was fascinating.
Yep. You've got Witchfather's picked up on it, and he's trying to kind of say hey in a more direct way. In a gentlemanly direct way. And then you've got Anacostia picking up on it, who's not going to say anything right now. She's going to say her piece, and then she's going to kind of let it lie. But you could see that little seed of something in Anacostia's head. So after that, we go to poor Raelle.
Again, Elliot loves torturing Raelle. That's the theme of the show.
I love Taylor in this scene. Poor Raelle wakes up in a panic and gets out of bed. She looks like she can't see or something, because she's wandering around the room for a few seconds.
She's what the where hell? The fuck am I?
Where the fuck? What the fuck's going on? And then she wakes up Tally, goes straight to Tally, and is like, wake up. Tally's like, what's going on? And then Abigail wakes up, and she starts rambling about Scylla's alive, and I was in her jail cell. They're torturing her. The army's holding her. So Abigail's trying to calm her down and thinks that it was a dream, and is like, it's not real. You were dreaming. But Raelle's super persistent and saying, no, it was real. But Abigail's like, after Charvel died, I thought my dreams were super real too. But Raelle's like, no, it wasn't a dream. And Tally's up there looking just like, oh shit. She knows.
She's like, good to hear from you that Scylla's alive, because I was also doubting that the army killed her.
Yeah.
Thanks for the confirmation.
So we know I know she's alive, but do you all? I also think Tally was like, did they tell you that I know? Do you know
Right,
that I know?
that's true. Yeah. What does she know? Holy shit.
It's like, oh, okay. But so just remember back to Isadora's little lesson about sleeping people, because obviously Raelle woke up too quick, because then she starts vomiting in a trash can.
Yeah.
Poor Raelle. So she got a taste of her own medicine, basically.
Oh my god, I didn't put that together. You're so right. This is Isadora's revenge.
It's Isadora's revenge, yeah.
I love it.
Speaking of Isadora, who should come into the room at that moment and but Isadora to tell them that City Drop is happening and that they need to get booted and suited.
I know, that's Mama Castia, Isadora.
Yeah, and then also get your shit together, caller.
Yeah. I know that I just tortured your ass, but she gives her zero time to like process any of the shit. She's like, get it together, caller. Like,
that's probably why she did it, because
she knows.
if Raelle did process it, she'd be up in Anacastia's shit faster than woo.
Oh yes. That's the first person Raelle and her big witch energy would have gone to scene after that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
So I think in a way, City Drop being expedited was a big yay for Mama Castia getting to not have that confrontation.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she planned this knowing that City Drop is at 0500.
Yep. So makes sense.
Mama Castia.
Damn it, Mama Castia. But it's helicopter time.
It sure is. They're running because, remember Flying Lady taught them how to run with their packs?
Yeah, exactly.
They're putting that into action.
So they're running with their packs to the helicopters. Oh my god. So the Hogwarts teacher.
She's flying overhead with her salva slipping her coffee. Like, yeah, ladies, just like I taught you.
Exactly. One foot in front of the other.
I'm gonna go watch my stories. See ya.
Exactly. All right, enjoy City Drop. Have fun. Don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Which is nothing.
Exactly.
I love her.
Oh yeah. Well, we love her in the actual part she played in the show, but we love her even more in our headcanon.
Yeah, I love her in these off-screen moments. She's great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I wish we had her name.
I'm telling you, we have to come up with a name for her.
We do. We have to. If you guys want to suggest a name for the Flying Lady, please do.
We'll put up the thing on social media.
Maybe
name her.
Exactly, name her. So Mama Castia, while they're all doing their running, is giving the whole talk about, this is your crucible. You succeed or fail as units. Make me proud. This is going to determine if you go to war college. Rah, rah, rah. Get in helicopters.
Which, what a wild time to, send them. They had, one healing lesson with Isadora. So are they prepared for this, is my question.
No. How many seeds have they learned? Not that many.
Right. They know Wind Strike. And kind of linking and Wind Shear.
That's I imagine they're...
What on earth? Is that
okay. Thinking about how they say things like seed 30 whatever, there are a lot of seeds that they haven't learned yet,
exactly.
Guys.
They're just cherry picking seeds. Where's 1 through 30 before we get to Wind Strike? I
imagine some of them are just things that you get in classes that we haven't seen, maybe.
Yeah, I wonder if the naming system is when scientists name stuff, they're just they name them in order and it doesn't have anything really to do with anything. It's seed 1 is a necro seed, seed 2 is a fixer seed. So they're going to learn them out of order later.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, they seem very ill prepared for this.
They do. And the only blessing is that it's not an actual combat situation.
Truly. Yeah. But it's this is what determines whether or not you're going to the front lines with these handful of skills, or if you're going to go to college and learn more skills. It just seems like they should all go to college because you didn't teach them anything.
So yeah, this is literally a life or death situation, in that if you don't get through, you're going to the front lines to die, basically.
Right. With the 3 things we taught you. It's wild.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Hope you learned something from somebody else that's been there.
Right, no wonder we're not winning against the spree.
You're not sending anybody in prepared.
Right, you're sending children with 3 skills to go fight this unseeable enemy. Like, it's ridiculous.
Because you don't have enough people to fight.
Right.
And the civilians are on your back about it.
Truly. Desperate times.
Ma'am, I understand that being in a position of authority for 300 and plus years makes you a little blind to certain aspects of humanity and what you're doing with people. But come the fuck on.
Seriously.
Do you want to beat the spree, or do you just want to throw people at the spree?
Right. And then eventually you'll have no one to throw at them because they're all dying. And the witch lines are like at the point of extinction. Some of these women are the last of their line. Like,
the reason the witch lines are being extinguished is because you're
crap
using
like
them
this.
like this.
Yeah. It's just, it seems so like nobody thought this through. It's crazy.
If you get to this point in thinking, you really understand what Elliot said about the spree have a point.
Yeah. Totally. They have a point. This is insane.
It's insane. And the only way they found to fight this system of unfairness.
It's like, also, they also brought up, the pitchfork things, that the people are starting to hate witches again. And it's like, you're giving them what they want because you're killing the witches with this reckless behavior. So, like, the humans are winning. Like, it makes me mad.
She's playing right into every enemy's hands is what's happening.
Thank you. That is it. Well said. That is exactly what's happening.
No, it's not,
love Alder, but
love Alder,
but this makes me mad.
We can love her and also criticize her decisions.
Totally, exactly. So, yeah, that's what this is. We're not hating Alder. This is just, the decisions are wild, and it seems like it's not really in the witch's best interest at the end of the day, really.
Because she created this system. She created this. She's very adamant about she is the mother of this system, the mother of these women in a way that she's having trained. The whole thing is her baby.
Yeah.
So she's responsible for what happens to all of these women. And yes, she feels that responsibility to a degree, but right now she's off the frickin' deep end as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. And that's why I think it's important they're showing us that, like, even Anacostia and people close to her seeing that Alder's not acting like Alder right now. Yeah.
Witchfather and Anacostia are picking up on that fact. Because she's getting desperate. She's so desperate right now to retain her power.
Yeah.
And retain her position. And it's not, I'm not saying that she's thinking, oh my God, I need to keep my power. No, she's just trying in her desperation to do whatever she can or whatever she thinks is going to work to beat this enemy. But really, she's beating herself and her entire side.
Yeah. And I think part of what Sarah's desperate too, it's desperate for Sarah's own motives, but also, like, in her mind, like you said, she feels a responsibility, and she later in another scene we'll see her like be like, I created this place for my people, basically. So she's doing it like for the witches too in her mind, to like, she's like, I'm the one that protected them by making the system, I have to keep the system, basically, is I think part of it.
And I also think it's also a very human way of justifying your own actions.
Yes.
So you go deeper into it rather than realizing the harm you're causing.
Yeah, and it's like, and then you become the monster you were fighting against.
Exactly.
Kind of yeah.
That's basically Alder's story arc.
Yeah.
In this season.
Totally. And that happens with people in real life. So.
Exactly. It's a very human thing to happen. And I love that we get that. That's just so cool.
It's very cool. So this is like the descent for Alder, kind of, that she doesn't realize is happening.
And the next scene is even more like, I mean.
Oh, this scene.
You want to talk about some big witch energy?
Yes. This is the most you're going to see in a while. So we cut over from the crucible for the cadets to Khalida spritzing the witch garden. And Alder walks in with the biddies and then starts talking to Khalida, like, caressing her face, but it's less creepy than it was when Khalida was unconscious. But she's like, are you feeling better? We were all so worried about you. And Khalida's like, yeah, no, I'm better. Thanks for helping. what do you want, basically? Like, you've done enough. How can I help you? And Alder cuts to the chase, gets on her knees. So she's at eye level with Khalida, and she's like, teach me your songs, and I will use them to make the world a better place. And Khalida is like, okay. And she grabs Alder's hands and starts singing a note. And it sounds like a note that came from Comrade Boris's Egg Song.
Mm-hmm.
It's very like pleasant and like beautiful. And Alder, you can see, just feels the song. So I think came from the Egg Song. And she's like on the verge of tears. And Alder instinctively like joins in with Khalida, and they start singing. And after a while, we see that the witch garden starts shriveling up and dying. And Khalida shifts her tone and looks like she's like, bitch, I'm in control right now. And she starts crippling Alder. And you see the biddies start cowering, like Khalida is like draining her life force or something. And Khalida, the way they're positioned now, because she's cowering, it almost looks like Khalida's like hovering over her like a predator. And eventually, Khalida releases the song. And Alder and the biddies are just like clutching their necks and like gasping for breath. And she says in mother tongue, our songs are not safe with you. And Khalida super witch mic drops and gets out of there, just leaving Alder on her knees, shaking and totally pissed off.
Her face. Oh my God, that was the most pissed off I've ever seen a person in my life.
Yes, Alder was super pissed. And Elliot talks about this in the After Storm. He confirms that like Khalida is just massively powerful. That's what you see in this with her crazy big witch energy. It's not even on the chart. And Lynn very cutely says that when Kylie, who's Khalida's actor, came on the set, Lynn was like, I was intimidated by this girl when she walked in on set. So she has like real big witch energy in this girl. And she loves the fact that, again, this is another character who's taking the liberty to talk back to Alder. And in this scene, you see that Khalida is actually more powerful than Alder. And so I think this would be a humbling situation for Alder, but because of all the stuff we just talked about where Alder's like fighting for the survival of witches in her mind, this just makes her angry because she's like, crap, somebody else is more powerful than me and I don't have their power. And so I think it has the opposite effect on Alder.
To what it might have in a different situation. So
Correct.
instead of taking it on board, it just pushes her further into her mission,
right,
if you will.
She goes on the defensive instead of accepting this and reflecting.
So she's not getting what she wants or what she thinks that she needs by getting the the powerful songs, but man,
Yeah,
it could have been a good moment, but instead, here we are.
here we are.
Yeah, but big props to this is just one of those moments, and I love Khalida. She's a little powerhouse.
Mm-hmm. She's like Scylla, where she's stupidly powerful but doesn't brag, or like you would never know unless she wants you to know, just like Scylla.
Exactly. And I can't wait to see what they do with her in season 3.
Samesies.
So let's go back to the unit, because we're on a helicopter, obviously, and Libba is giving her little unit a pep talk. A very good pep talk, might we add.
So good. Abigail cannot take her eyes off her.
No, like Abigail's watching her the whole time. We are Storm, we are Fury, and we cannot fail. And then her unit stomps, as is the custom. But Raelle's head is back in that jail cell. Abigail's watching Libba and having feelings. And Tally is over here in another direction, worrying about Raelle knowing about Scylla.
Mm-hmm. Oh, about Tally's hand in Scylla's torture, yes.
Exactly. But then Libba catches Abigail looking and is like, you got a problem, Bellwether? But Abigail's just like, good speech. I'm like,
yeah, Abigail's like, oh, fuck, she's talking to me. I can't say you're hot. The speech.
Good speech. That was words. As good as saying you're hot.
Those words, they were words. Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
In their vernacular, that was like a huge.
That was like, the fuck?
Yeah. So that makes Libba kind of be like, what the fuck? But then I love their opposite kind of interactions with their unit, because Abigail goes to check in on hers, and she's like, "It's gonna be okay."
Raelle and Tally are just like losing their shit internally about other stuff.
Yeah, they're so not here, but they're
No.
like, it's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be fine. This is gonna be so bad. Her internal monologue is like, ah, fuck.
Yeah. Oh crap.
Yeah.
We're back to shitbird land.
Yeah, we're in
But
shitbird land.
they put up their hoods, which I don't get because wouldn't the wind blow them back off?
Thank you. Thank you. That move was so dumb. Put that when you get on the ground, do that. That's gonna do nothing.
But we see them flying through the air with their hoods perfectly in place. So these magical hoods that
perhaps. Did flying instructor later teach you this? Any of this?
Because there are other episodes where they put the hoods up, and I'm like, you're in a combat situation. Don't you need your peripheral vision?
Yeah, I don't really understand the function of the hoods, to be quite honest. It feels like, it would be a detriment because you can't see.
Right.
Maybe it helps them magically focus. I don't know, but it seems dumb.
Yeah.
Personally.
First of all, they're magic hoods because they stay in place no matter what.
Right.
Secondly,
they're clearly for aesthetics. Yeah. And they're magic. Yeah, I agree.
Fair enough, because I love the aesthetic of a hood.
Same.
Logically.
No.
So yeah, they put their salve on, and then right before they jump out of the plane, they all stomp once.
Synchronized. It's awesome.
Synchronized. Yeah. So I think that they've done that training before in a helicopter on the ground.
God, I hope so.
And in the sky, hopefully.
Again, flying instructor lady. I don't think she took them up
No.
in a helicopter. No, she don't
I think that some underling took them to a grounded helicopter. But I also wonder, and in my head, I want this to be a bellwether unit thing. The one stomp before they go.
Me too.
So that's something. So yeah, they're dropping down for the city drop, and that's where we leave them. Flying through the air.
It sure is.
Like little missiles. Little witch missiles.
Little witch bombs.
Little witch bombs going to the ground.
Harry Potter flying lady and the mystery of the witch bombs.
Yep, there we go. But I guess now it's time for our wrap up.
Alrighty, so what did we learn this episode? We learned that Colonel Wick is a hot mess when it comes to fixing. Even though she can restore a bunch of limbs, apparently she is no match in all her powers against this witch plague. We're just going to call it that now because that's what it is. But Raelle and the Mycelium seem to have some kind of way to get around that. And so Khalida ends up getting the witch plague off of her. And Adil is very, very grateful for this. And Abigail and Adil do some bonding. There's romantic stuff happening. And
bonding with their lips.
And their, mutual kind of grief over being targeted and what that's kind of like. And we see that Abigail is really growing into Abigail, not the bellwether. And so she's much more compassionate with him. And she's even, getting on friendly terms with her Beltane boys. So we see Abigail really going down this path of self-growth. And it's making her a better leader, really, because she's more compassionate with Raelle and Tally and herself. And so we'll see how that plays out next episode when they are in City Drop.
Yep.
Yeah. Raelle. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Isadora does not fuck around with her lessons.
No. Who the fuck let her do a healing lesson, first of all? And she did what Isadora would do as a healing instructor, which was not really prepare them for healing. So it was classic. But she ends up giving Raelle a pretty good little pep talk about mastering her feelings, because that is Raelle's issue. And so hopefully that sticks with Raelle as we go forward.
We also got confirmation once again about linking.
Yep.
And memories and thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So linking is more than just a way to fix someone.
Yeah, it can be used in an intelligence standpoint, which is what Mama Costia does with Scylla, and uses her deep feelings for Raelle to break through her and get the spree memory so they can get confirmation of where the spree are held up, I guess, nearby that auto plant, so they can go after them. And she gets a little glimpse of the fact that Scylla is not really down with all the murdering that they do, and perhaps there's some quote-unquote good in her after all. But Alder is I'm having none of this. and is just so focused and entrenched in all getting a win with the spree. Really, that's what Elliot says. She's really just focused on getting a win because like the president's breathing down her back and all this stuff. But those closest to her can see that Alder's kind of acting a little bit reckless and not like her typical self. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, you get the idea that she's usually very measured in her decision making, but she's going at this from a very, like we said, desperation and emotional standpoint rather than a logical.
Totally. So like call back to Isadora, like get your emotions under control. Alder really needs to take that advice too because she's being less rational. And we'll see the consequences of that. Tally misguidedly gets it on with Garrett, but she doesn't seem emotionally invested in him, so that's good.
We find out that the witch plague is man-made and uncurable by canon work? Question mark?
Yeah, question mark. And Khalida is like, I don't care what the fuck happened here. I'm not giving you our seed songs, Alder.
Yeah.
We'll be the last stewards. Get the hell away from me. And Alder doesn't like that answer because that's like the last weapon, and that could be something where she can get a win. So Alder's not pleased with this in her current headspace.
Not at all. But City Drop started.
And City Drop started. Oh, and Raelle finally told Scylla she loved her.
Ah!
Finally.
How did we? Oh, God.
Because that whole scene hurts. That's why.
Yeah, no, I totally blink it out of existence sometimes because even though it's so good, it's so painful.
Yeah. And Raelle gets confirmation Scylla is actually alive.
Mm-hmm. And
that's the episode, really.
That's the episode. I really like thinking about, like, Scylla had such limited time to talk to Raelle. There was no way she could give her the information that would actually, like, it would take an entire, 75 days for her to explain why she did what she did and all of that kind of stuff. So it's really sad that she doesn't get a proper explanation because Raelle deserves one. And it's the only way that she could really make Raelle understand. So instead, we get what we got.
Yeah, I think Scylla knows that. But again,
she does.
Amalia said it before talking about that scene where, like, in that moment, she knew she didn't have time. And she sees that, like, Raelle's really upset, and she didn't want Raelle to be upset because it comes back to the whole thing that this all stems from Scylla's big choice, and she didn't want to burden Raelle with the choice and, like, the consequences. And so in that moment, she's just, like, trying to, like, keep Raelle calm and not have her be upset. So I think that's why she's like, listen, just don't listen to what people are going to say. Like, just remember I love you kind of thing.
It's a big hallmark of Scylla's character that she doesn't want to burden other people. Doesn't want to put her burden on other people. But the part where she was like, I would never hurt you. Yes, I understand that, but also you did. So
yeah.
Damn it, Scylla.
I know.
Gaslighting. The gaslighting.
But I think Scylla meant that in the sense of like I would never actually like do something just to hurt you. Like
she did.
Just happened.
But I still have to point out her flaw.
Of course. But that's the episode.
Yeah.
So, who gets the biggest Witch Energy Award for you?
I'm torn.
Yeah, I have two.
I have a problem.
But, yeah.
I really, really, really want to give it to Scylla for holding out against Alder and Mama Costia for freaking however much time she did.
Yeah, who knows how long she was in that cell, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. We don't really get a time spans are not the strong suit of this. Like, letting us know how much time has passed is not a strong suit of this series.
No, time is a construct on the series. You never know how much time is passing.
It's really ambiguous for a reason, though, I think.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, who knows how long she was in the cell being tortured, really?
Yeah, exactly, because who knows how long Tally had to sit with that guilt. Who knows how long Raelle thought that she was dead.
Right, exactly.
So I really want to give it to Scylla, but I also really want to give it to Khalida.
Yep. Khalida wins for me.
So if Khalida wins for you, I guess I'll say Scylla.
Yeah, Khalida just the whole thing with Alder in the witch garden, like that,
that
right
was
then and there.
such
She
so
literally brought a Sarah Alder to her
to her knees.
To her knees. Yeah, Khalida. And also, like, after Raelle, quote unquote, heals her, she just gets up and she's like, yeah, I was dying, but like, whatever. I need food. Get me food.
Yeah, give me food. Like,
so I love that
sustenance.
Too. My runner-up, Scylla's a good one. My other runner-up is Mama Costia, and it's for all the stuff with Scylla, and I hate it, which is why she didn't win for me.
Oh, yeah. No, that was like my third, but I couldn't pick it because of the reason that you just said.
Totally. Yeah, I was like, honestly, Mama Costia had a bunch of big witch energy, but like Khalida
really
crippling Alder, just that is the definition of big witch energy. So, yeah, so that's episode 7.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I guess.
The pain. It brought the pain.
It brought so much pain, but we're not done with the pain because this is Motherland and we get to city drop next time.
We get to city drop into more pain. We get to
city dropping into a world of pain. But seriously, listen to our episode though, guys. We're trying to hype it
up. Just wait. It gets better.
Yeah, it gets better.
Depending on your definition of better.
Yeah, it gets more interesting. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. But we're getting to the end of the season, so we gotta have all the big dramatics.
All of it. So
I'm excited.
I'm excited.
All right, guys. Alrighty. I guess that's it for us.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. And with that, we've been Big Witch Energy. If you like this episode, check out all of our other episodes right here on YouTube. Please like, comment below, and subscribe for more amazing content. Hydrate for Lesbian Jesus.